Agent 57. What is up, man? Dude, the one thing I try to do is keep a constant stream schedule. I know it's difficult with race weekends and everything, but I try really hard to keep a nice, consistent schedule. Samantha and Hex, what's up, y'all? Welcome. Hope y'all are having a fantastic Wednesday. Hex, this is the only time I can stream, man. I have just put the kids to bed, and this is literally the only time I can do it. Especially since they're little feral boys, and God forbid they come running through my office while the camera's on, butt naked, because they would do it. Dude, if I could stream at work, I probably would. Although I don't know how to really pull off the co-work streams. Hey, Tiger, what's up, man? Hey, Chris. Yes, as soon as the camera comes on, she probably will need to go outside, especially since I just got home. I was over at my father-in-law's house. We were working on trying to get some of the quads prepped for race weekend, and it's going to be cutting it close, but I think we'll make it. Agent Zero's quad is still in pieces. I think I have been. I think it's been about 2 years now, Hex. Yeah, I think it's been about 2 years that I've been streaming now. Because we spent about, I don't know, maybe roughly the first year, maybe the first 6 months, doing a lot of Active Directory and red teaming stuff. And then about the next year after that, working on Hackbot. And we're still working on Hackbot too. It's just I'm taking a little bit of a break for it as I re-architect it, get ready to rewrite it. And Ty, yeah, we're good, man. It's just so Agent Zero unfortunately sucked a lot of dust into his carburetor because the vent hose had come off. And so that vent hose helps balance the pressure in the float in the carb. And when that came off, because there's constantly air kind of moving in and out of there, so you typically have like a hose to handle anything that might be discharged from the carburetor or sucked in, and that hose helps keep the dust out. Well, the hose came off. He sucked in a butt ton of dust and gunk into it, and it just went right into his engine and just sandpapered the inside of it. So we're currently trying to put it back together. Unfortunately, the new cylinder we got is like a millimeter too wide. So we've got to go in and do a little bit of shaving on it. And he's actually not going to be riding his four-wheeler. He's got a backup one. The one, I think I showed the video on Sunday. The one that's black and yellow. He's going to ride that one. We call it Bumblebee. He's going to ride that one for this race. And it's not quite as fast as his normal four-wheeler, but he'll be good. All right, it's about that time. Time to commence. Oh yeah. Now let's see if the screen share will actually work. Hey, it did.
Hello, IT. Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Unfortunately, that doesn't tend to work with a lot of mechanical systems, 57. Otherwise, that'd have been the easiest fix in the world on his four-wheeler. Heck, he turns it off every time he gets off of it. And yeah, the wind in Texas has been kind of crazy. So when we went out to the track on Sunday, there were some guys there. On particular Sundays, we'll go out to this one motocross track called Boneyard, and it's typically for dirt bike riders. But some Sundays they'll invite us out. They know what's going on, and so we'll kind of take turns. Mostly, it's not really split between the dirt bikes and the quads. It's usually split between the kids and the adults. So we'll be out there, and I'll tell you a funny story. There was a little boy out there. He's 5, and he's on a small KTM dirt bike, and he was getting after it. He was doing great. And I pulled off one of our older riders because he's on I forget what size. I think he's on a 110 4-stroke. But it's bigger, it's heavier, he's heavier, and this little dude on his smaller dirt bike was faster than him. And so poor little guy, he's just kind of stuck behind him. So I pulled him off and then immediately sent him back on the track. He's like, what was that for? I was like, you're too slow. Let the little dude go. Because the little dude was hitting jumps and just doing fantastic. I didn't want him stuck behind him for another lap. I watched all of One Piece and DB without a Crunchyroll sub. Dude. They're getting ready to start remaking One Piece. I heard that. Maybe I'll try to catch it. But dude, it's a rough go to try and invest into 1,000 episodes, man. Oh, let's see. Oh, this was just a fun story one of my buddies sent me. So I thought we'll start off with a fun one for tonight. Especially since Crunchyroll has been getting a lot of flack lately in the anime community. I heard the live action of One Piece was actually pretty decent. And so I've been meaning to go check it out. So, other than that, I've just been working away, still neck deep in Kubernetes land. By the way, I posted up in Discord, but I did figure out what was going on with the freaking... let me see if I can find it real quick. I posted up what was going on in Discord. Here, I'll just bring it over here. I'll show you. So what had happened, what happened was, this is what, and sorry, it's kind of small. I don't think I can make the text in Discord any bigger. Oh, I can. Ooh, it gets bigger. That's what she said. So what had happened was, when I was going through and I was customizing the lab configuration, this is what was actually in the lab. So these are supposed to be entries in an object, right? In a key value pair into an array. So roles was mapped in twice. And the problem everything was failing on was that one machine, the certificate server, didn't have the firewall disabled. So I was like trying to figure out, I was like, why? It's like, and I sent it to some buddies. We're all looking at it. Finally, I realized what must be happening is because I accidentally overloaded the roles value. It was ignoring the first one, and when it parsed it, it just took the second one. So the firewall on the cert server was still on. It couldn't reach it to go do the configuration. And so after I switched it to this, the lab deploys beautifully. It's wonderful. It's the best. It's a nice lab, a huge lab, kind of a complex lab, but you know, it's a good lab. How'd I figure that out? I don't know how I figured. I just was looking at it and I was like, what is wrong with this one particular server? Because I actually did go in and I turned off all the firewalls manually. And then after that, I can redeploy the lab and it runs and everything was looking good. So I took another close look at it and that's when I realized that, oh, it's got this doubled up roles definition. That must be what's causing it. What is this? Yeah, there we go. Get rid of that. All right. Well, let's dive in. I got a fun one here for you. One kind of fun one, one kind of short one. Update from Dreadnode. But this first one here for tonight is Crunchyroll is investigating a potential security breach. Crunchyroll, the leading subscription platform for anime streaming, is currently investigating word that it suffered a major cyber attack. One that reportedly has put millions of users' information at risk. The platform, which is home to several major anime series like One Piece and Demon Slayer, as well as smaller, more niche titles, is available in dozens of countries and territories, making the issue particularly troublesome. The claim follows a social media post from International Cyber Digest that claims to have received word from an alleged hacker about the breach. Their screenshots that are reportedly from Crunchyroll's IT systems were shared, giving further credence to the cyber attack. Ooh, I follow them. I'm surprised I didn't see this like when it first came up. Show more. Hang on, let me pull up the actual tweet from them real quick. Breaking! Crunchyroll through sourcing out partner. Crunchyroll breach through outsourcing partner in India. Oh, we've never seen that before. Threat actor exfiltrated data from Crunchyroll's ticketing system and also managed to pull down 100 gigabytes of personally identifiable customer analytics data. We analyzed a sample of data and included IP addresses, email addresses, credit card details, RIP, and more. An employee of the outsourcing partner, TELUS, had executed malware on his system, which gave the threat actors access to Crunchyroll's environment. Well, there it is. Ooh, looks like got pictures from the internal Slack. Oh no. Crunchyroll. That's funny. So apparently the breach dates back to March 12th, as first reported by PC Mag, with the hackers sharing that they've been able to steal user and IP data. And the breach revolves around customer service ticketing data. So a few hours later, the company was able to further determine the nature of the attack, pinpointing its nature to customer service data via support tickets. At this time, we believe the information is primarily limited to customer service ticket data following an incident with a third-party vendor. Third-party risk is still a risk, bro. Still is. So we have not identified evidence of ongoing access to systems in relation to these claims. We are continuing to monitor the situation closely. Well, yeah, you're always going to say that, because if you weren't monitoring the situation closely, you just look negligent. Separately, Bleeping Computers also focused on an information security technology news publication, also focused on cybersecurity, has reported the attack stems from gaining access to a support agent's SSO login. Ooh. The attackers claim over 8 million support tickets were intercepted from Zendesk. Nice. Of that number, 6.8 million are reportedly unique email addresses. Usernames, logins, emails, IP addresses, general geographic location, and content of the support tickets are among the information included in these tickets. Bleeping Computers further states that credit card information is indeed part of the tickets. Ooh. Now, it's probably not complete credit card data, unless they really, really messed up. All right, good night, Hex. Unless they really, really messed up, it's probably not complete credit card information. It's probably things like last 4 digits, expiration date, but that's still not good. Let's see. The attack on Crunchyroll is not unprecedented. Well, no kidding. It's not like they're unique. Everybody's had this happen. Oh, too funny. So yeah, rip country roll. One of Roku's updates killed watching TV over antenna. What? That's crazy. I mean, no, I never used my Roku for that specifically. I always had like an antenna hooked up to the TV itself. And God, I don't think I've used that thing in forever. I probably haven't used that since my sister was staying with us, which, damn, that was back in like 2019, 2020. And she was staying with us for multiple days of the week. She was looking after our son. And so mostly Roku's TV. Dude, I got a Roku that because I changed my Wi-Fi and upgraded it to Wi-Fi 6, and I can't get it to boot up. Like, it's like, I need to download updates, but it can't connect to the Wi-Fi, and so that Roku's just toast right now. And I don't feel like digging around the back of the TV to, like, pull it out. Oh, well. It's on the TV in my bedroom, and I forget that TV's even there because I use it so little. All right. Another update. So we talked about previously that Dreadnought had shut down the Crucible. Sad. I really liked the Crucible, but they've now launched. They've launched their 2.0 platform, first complete infrastructure platform for security agents. Oh yeah. Let me zoom out this a little bit. Let's see. Dreadnought, the infrastructure platform for security stack, today announced general availability of Dreadnought 2.0. The release introduces hosted evaluations, a model training and optimization pipeline. Ooh, nice. Advanced AI red teaming, capability registries, managed sandboxes, and a new visual front end. Everything required to close the loop from proof of concept to production agents. I really like the Dreadnought guys, so I can't wait to go dig into this. Dreadnought was founded with the mission to prove AI could perform offensive security operations. That thesis has been validated across use cases, and now the opportunity is bigger and hold on, I messed that up. The thesis has been validated across use cases, and now the opportunity is bigger than offense versus defense. AI is going to change the entire security stack. Dreadnought will continue to prioritize offensive security, AI red teaming, but the 2.0 release signals what's required to make AI native security a reality. So this is from Will Pierce, who's the CEO. He actually just did an interview with Daniel Miesler. I didn't get to watch it. I watched the first few minutes of it. It's up on his... What is it? It's up on Daniel's YouTube channel. Now, what's funny is I technically have Wi-Fi 7 Pale, but Wi-Fi 7 is the backbone between the two routers that I've got acting as a mesh in the house. Let's see here. So what did Will say? Models have proven they can perform at par or exceeding human capabilities, but capability without infrastructure won't solve security. Will Pierce, CEO and co-founder of Dreadnought. AI transformed software engineering and spawned an ecosystem of infrastructure companies to accelerate the domain. Now security is undergoing the same transformation, but purpose-built infrastructure didn't exist, so we built it. Yeah. Every team we talked to is working on accelerating with this tech. The question isn't if agents are the future, it's whether they have the tools to build, deploy, and improve them at scale. That is from Nick Landers, the CTO and co-founder of Dreadnought. So we're the infrastructure layer that makes that possible with control of your data and tooling that matters. All right, so what's new in 2.0? The Resource Hub, which is a repository of approximately 1,600 security tasks, alongside custom datasets, models, and packaged offensive capabilities for agents, skills, and tools. Publish and version your own work privately or share them with the community. Nice. Hey, Bobby, what's up, man? Advanced AI red teaming. So an algorithmic approach to AI security probing, safety assessments, agentic security testing, multimodal and multilingual probing, lingual, and model evaluations. They also have hosted evaluations. So this is bring your own environments, scores, and metrics for measuring agent performance without the operational burden of rate limits, timeouts, and monitoring. Let's see. They also have training and optimization modules for model fine-tuning and prompt optimization, enabling teams to train their own operational data with on-premise inference. Nice. Basically meaning you're running your own data in-house and they're helping you tweak it. Now, this is the one I'm most curious about, is the world system, which we read about that a couple weeks ago. synthetic network environment generation that simulates protocols and produces trajectories for agent training and testing. Nice. And basically what they did is they created a system that is not based around AI agents, but it goes through and kind of programmatically generates a randomized set of data based on certain like indicators or attack methods that you would use against like an Active Directory environment. It's a very cool idea. And they had some really promising results because in the blog post we read from them, they did an example where they gave their offensive AI agent harness to Nematron 8B, I think. And I don't think Nematron scored anything in its vanilla format, right? Then they took data from their worlds engine, used it to train what's called a LoRa, a low order rank adapter, something like that. And a LoRa is basically an overlay, so it doesn't affect the model itself. You can take a LoRa and lay it over the model, and then it adjusts the weights as they kind of go through the process. And with that, you most commonly place you'll see LoRa's is in visual generation, right? People will make LoRa's for like turning pictures into, or generating pictures like in an anime style. So say you've got a model that's very good at making photorealistic people, you could go put like an anime character LoRa on top of it, and you have certain keywords you use to trigger it. And then it starts shifting all the weights for the output data over towards an anime style. So that's a kind of a brief 10,000 foot overview of how LoRa's operate. And basically though, using that world's data, they trained a LoRa, they overlaid it on top of Nematron, and then it went from scoring like 0 to scoring like 87%, I think, if I remember correctly. So very cool system for generating synthetic data. All right, so some other stuff they put in here. Managed sandboxes. Safe, segmented, and scalable compute environments for agent execution with remote compute and guardrails built in. Scale agentic capabilities, no matter the use case. They updated the front end. Let's see. So a new front end allows teams to run capabilities like security operations, network ops, and web app testing, reversing, and more. And it can deploy it locally or in a sandbox. Also has a terminal user interface. Nice. A TUI. And they've also got tracing and observability now built into it. Very cool. I'm hoping to be able to get something for this because I'm actually planning on baking that into the remake of Hackbot. So I'm looking forward to that. Hey, 44. Oh, wait, you were already in here. I already said hi to you. I got your, by the way, I got your story. We're going to cover that one next here in just a second. By the way, guys, so two things. There is a chat command that you can use over on Twitch. It's !news. I'm sorry, my guys over on YouTube. I'm working on fixing it. I haven't gotten a chance to do it yet, but eventually it will work in YouTube land as well too. But what you can do is you can type !news and then drop a link to a news article that you want to see covered on the news stream, and it will drop it over into Discord, and I can go check on it and read it, basically. So if you've got anything you want to be covered on the news stream, feel free to go drop those. Let's see. So what else do they got going on here? So Dreadnode's approach is deliberately different from close security agent vendors that deliver single-purpose agents and generic agent frameworks that weren't built for security's unique requirements. So rather than building point solutions, the platform provides infrastructure that supports any security agent use case, offensive and defensive. Teams bring their own domain expertise, and Dreadnode provides the platform. So I really like this for two reasons. One, actually, the Dreadnode guys probably could go do that if they wanted to. But honestly, I think they're taking the wiser approach, and that is the approach of picks and shovels. And what that is anytime you saw a gold, like anytime, for example, there was the gold rush in California, right? A lot of the people that were going and mining for gold didn't make any money. But you know who made a butt ton of money? The people selling picks and shovels. So, yeah. So I like what they're doing here because they're taking the picks and shovels approach. They're giving all the tools for everybody else to go do the building themselves. Let's see. So they have two kind of core plans available here. Pro is for builders, practitioners, and teams. Fully featured SaaS with the pay-as-you-go model. And then also it says start for free. Ooh, nice. I'll have to go look at that. And then, of course, they've got the big old enterprise version. So cool stuff coming up from the boys over at Dreadnode. Can't wait to go play with it. I'm really sad the Crucible's gone, though, because I liked the AI challenges at Crucible. Makes me sad. All right. Let's take a look here. Oh, this is a long one. You sent me a chunky one here, 44. Yeah. So this one here is about... What do you say it was actually about? So I believe this was looking at, what was it, an exploit in de novo? What did you say? Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, so there was a hypervisor bypass against de novo. Pretty cool concept for bypassing DRM. So I had not seen this. I told 44 link me to it. We'll cover it tonight. Let's see here. So this is their hypervisor guide. And they have a quick note up here. Says the article is partially based on Resector Rs, which is the admin of rin.ru, csrin.ru. I don't know what that is. I'm not clicking on a .ru link from my computer. Let's see. So we covers what is the hypervisor crack. So the de novo hypervisor crack or bypass refers to advanced techniques that leverage virtualization at a very low level, often using customer modified hypervisors to interfere with how the protection monitors the system. De novo relies heavily on integrity checks, timing analysis, and detection of debugging or emulation environments. A hypervisor-based approach allows an attacker to sit under the operating system, transparently controlling CPU behavior, intercepting instructions, and masking signs of analysis without modifying the protected executable directly. Ooh. So it sounds like what they're doing is, if I'm going to have to guess here, is I'm just going to take a swag at this. Let's, flashbang. Let me make sure I got the correct terminology here. Okay. So when it comes to hypervisors, I want to make sure I got the typing correct on this. What you've got is a hypervisor is a system that is designed to allow you to run those virtual machines. It makes a set of fake hardware that a computer can run and then share it with other operating systems. So for example, let's kind of compare this to what your normal computer stack looks like, right? So here in a normal computer, so this is your PC, right? What you've got down here is you have a base hardware layer, right? So this is where your CPU, your RAM, your PCIe buses, everything sits down here in the hardware layer. Directly above that hardware layer is then where you're going to have the operating system. So your operating system sits and it handles all the interactions, all the inputs and outputs with the hardware layer. That's what it's doing. Its job is to sit down here. Now there's different layers of the operating system you can split up for this. I'm going to keep it real simple here. Then on top of the operating system, then what you're going to have is you're going to have your apps, whatever they are. So calculator, your browser, whatever else in here. They're all sitting on top of this. And just ignore this part up here. That's not important. Now, what does a hypervisor do? Well, you have two kinds of these. We're going to start with the kind that's probably most familiar to a lot of folks. And this is a type 2 hypervisor. So a type 2 hypervisor is things like VMware. VMware, VirtualBox, those are called type 2 hypervisors. And the stack to this is very similar. So down here, we still have our hardware layer, right? And then we have our operating system. Oops, messed that up. We have our operating system. And then on top of this, let's say as one of those apps, I'll split it like this. We have all of our normal applications running here. But basically running alongside those is now we have our hypervisor running right here. And then inside your hypervisor, we can kind of partition it like this. So up here, this is where all of our various applications are running and living. And then over here, we have all these different virtual machines that we can run. And the hypervisor handles translating those for the operating system, usually through some kind of a kernel driver, and then talking to the hardware. So it still has to pass through the operating system layer to get down here. So that's a type 2. But we can go further. We have the technology. Now over here, what we have is a type 1 hypervisor. So for type 1, rather than having an operating system, we just have the hypervisor. The hypervisor is the base layer operating system. Now, typically, there will be a very, 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 very tiny kind of OS-like operating system kind of running on top of this, but it's mostly just to handle all the operations to and from the hypervisor itself. And then up here is where we have all of our virtual machines. So this is meant to be what's called a bare metal. It allows you to get the most resource usage because now you don't have contention with any kind of operating system or anything. And it sounds like what they're doing is they're probably using this type 1 hypervisor, if I had to guess what they're doing. This actually, for what they're doing here, is instead of actually operating inside of the virtual machine in here, right? So let's say this virtual machine, kind of blow it up right here. This is a full-blown operating system, right? So you could be running Windows on here. You could be running Linux, right? Linux. And you've got your full suite of things in here. So for example, if you had something like VLC running in here, right? VLC could be running in here. It could be doing all the DRM checks and everything. But there's a kind of fundamental law of computing. And that is if you can compromise a layer below where you're operating, then you basically have full control. So down here, if we're able to compromise the hypervisor itself, we control all these virtual machines. We have basically God mode access to them. And it sounds like that's what they're doing here is as part of going through and abusing whatever this DRM system de novo is they're using a hypervisor. I don't know if it's a type 1 or type 2. We'll get to that in just a second. I think you probably could make this work on a type 2 hypervisor. I suspect, though, from the very technical write-up we're about to read, they probably did this on a type 1 hypervisor. Hey, Deefus, what's up, man? Hypervisor is called ring -1 in the privilege level, if I recall correctly, since it's more privs than the OS layer ever could have. Yeah, the ring system is kind of goofy. Because ring 0 was supposed to be like you've got all the access. But then they come out and found that you can have more access. So then we start getting like ring -1. And again, the ring system, don't make me recite this from memory, but basically it works in the same way here. Imagine we had rings instead of these layers like this. It works the same way, right? This might be ring 0, ring 1, ring 2, whatever. But if you've got something operating in this ring and you compromise this ring, then this is going to be compromised as well. You can compromise everything above it in there. And it works the same way in here. In this one, oh, you know what? I completely left out. I don't know why I wrote operating system there. That's not correct. That right there. That is supposed to be the hardware. We have the hardware layer and then we have the hypervisor layer. That's gonna work. There we go. This is the hardware layer right here. And then we have the hypervisor layer on top of that with a little bitty teeny tiny OS right there. Sometimes this operating system that's running it is actually still just running as like a micro VM inside the hypervisor. So, but anyway, yeah, it kind of works in that same decision there. All right, so now that we are familiar with the different types of hypervisors, let's go through and read what they were talking about. So a hypervisor-based approach allows an attacker to sit under the operating system, transparently controlling the CPU behavior, intercepting instructions, and masking signals of analysis without modifying the protected executable directly. Instead of patching the game binary, the hypervisor can emulate or alter specific CPU instructions, fake timing results, or hide breakpoints and memory changes, effectively tricking de novo into believing everything is running normally. This makes the protection much harder to detect or react to since it checks for being handled outside its visibility. And so these methods are extremely complex and typically explored by highly skilled reverse engineers as they require deep knowledge of CPU virtualization, kernel internals, and anti-tamper mechanisms. So officially, only signed drivers can work at such a low level due to their privacy nature of de novo's hypervisor drivers, they will never receive Microsoft-approved certificates. And that's why to use such cracks, you need to make certain modifications to your system security settings. Please note that those changes are intended to be made temporary for the course of your gameplay session, and then should be reverted after you quit the game. Wait, hold on. So is de novo? What is de novo? So it's an anti-tamper and DRM system, but is it mostly used for games? I was thinking this was a DRM system for like video distribution, but it sounds like it's for actually like for video games, something like Easy Anti-Cheat. Yeah, it's for games. Okay, gotcha. All right, that shifts my understanding a little bit more and makes the context here a lot more understandable. All right, so on modern systems with secure boot and a TPM trusted something module, I forget what it is. I forget what the P is. And hardware-assisted virtualization capabilities, which are mostly enabled on Windows 10 and 11 by default. Various security solutions via virtualized-based security, and is an umbrella term for using bare metal hypervisor, the Windows hypervisor, to create isolated virtual spaces that are safe from even fully compromised operating systems, in which these security components run and monitor the OS or store confidential information. Yeah, by the way, if you didn't know this, there's actually a little bit of a trick to this. Technically, if you enable Hyper-V on a Windows operating system, you're technically using a Type 1 hypervisor. Because let's say you start over here, right? This is your PC. You've just got a fresh install. You don't have Hyper-V. You're not using WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux. You're technically running in this configuration right here. Hardware with operating system and apps, just like this. Boom, boom, boom. But let's say then you go turn on something like Hyper-V. Well, now you're actually running more in this configuration, and your Windows section is sitting like right here, just like this. Your operating system that you're interacting with is sitting there transparently interacting as a virtual machine in Hyper-V down here. And that's a Type 1 hypervisor sitting right here. So, fun little fact if you didn't know that. Let's see. All right, so the following Windows components offer such security solutions. So we've got memory integrity, HVCI, and it runs checks to detect malicious or at least unexpected modifications of Windows kernel code and restrict suspicious kernel memory allocations. So, for example, resource sector images that could protect against malicious software that are being run with administrative privileges and attempt to modify system files, or against memory security vulnerabilities in user-run applications. We also have Credential Guard. Now, I've never come across HVCI, but I have come across Credential Guard. It's a pain in the butt. It stores access credentials such as passwords, authentication data, or biometric data in an isolated environment. Credential Guard is kind of a pain in the butt. It's not foolproof, and there are ways around it, but you have to get noisy to kind of get around it. You also have Windows Hello that allows you to log in with convenient methods like a short PIN or facial recognition or a fingerprint scan. Resurrector has not found a direct source for this, but it probably prefers Credential Guard to store its highly sensitive data. The login method the login methods it provides tend to break when some of the components above are disabled. It is also protected by System Guard. Maybe if it's enabled. And then you have System Guard, which he was just talking about. An advanced system hardening framework that protects operating system boot processes and the system management mode, commonly used by the BIOS to run hardware configuration software, from basically protecting it from rootkits. And such rootkits could compromise the hypervisor itself, so the protection is assisted by various hardware security features of modern processors. That's also backed by the TPM2 chip. And this also allows to monitor system integrity, including the other security components mentioned above. And after boot, it continuously and it verifies it from a remote system. So what was this called? De novo? Yeah. So de novo is basically only very hard to crack game DRM, or at least it was. It can be very resource intensive, and that's why gamers hate it. But game publishers will usually implement it in their games for the first few months after release and then get rid of it because they already made most of the sales. That doesn't surprise me. What always killed me was like the fact that they had something like, I forget what they had in Helldivers. What was the Helldivers anti-cheat? I forget what it was, but it was a pain. And it was so annoying. I think they're using easy anti-cheat. Actually, it looks like they now switched to in protect game guard. I think they were using easy anti-cheat in the beginning. But anyway, it made no sense because Helldivers is a co-op game. Like, there's nothing you do that really affects anybody else in the game. All the points are shared. All the loot is split equally amongst all the players. So, like, if you gather 10 of a resource, everybody gets the 10, right? It's not like it's divided up. And so I don't get why they were so hard up on using an anti-cheat in Helldivers. Oh, yeah. Not sponsored by Jocko, which you can't see yet. Here, hold on. I can kind of show you, though. Look at that. The hyper green screen Jocko. Fun. I think anti-cheat and DRM are a little bit different. Anti-cheat is more for multiplayer games to stop cheating, while DRM is to protect copying the game, and de novo is a DRM. Oh, okay. Well, from the very brief check I just did, it looked like it was... Oh, hold on. My mouse went squirrely on me. It looked like it was a DRM system, but also an anti-cheat. Well, technically, it's an anti-tamper DRM. Protects game code from cracking, reverse engineering via runtime checks, virtualization, and obfuscation. Developed by an Austrian company, it's often criticized for potential performance impacts on legitimate users. Yeah. Let's see. All right, so after we go through all this, all right, so without the Windows hypervisor, none of these security features can be used, and by design, the hypervisor cannot be disabled directly. Instead, all the above features that want to utilize VBS signal, that it is enabled. Wait, hold on. Did they mention what VBS is? I guess not. Oh, hold on, I missed a section here. It says, even though hardware and boot requirements are met, Windows sometimes seems to fail at enabling features that are supposed to be enabled automatically, such as VBS or memory integrity. What is VBS? I live in acronym hell. Windows. Oh, it's virtualization-based security. Duh. Makes sense. Let's see. So without the Windows hypervisor, none of the security features can be used, and by design, the hypervisor cannot be disabled directly. Instead, all the above features that want to utilize VBS, virtualization-based security, signal that it needs to be enabled, which then loads the hypervisor. Therefore, we must disable all those features to prevent the Windows hypervisor from being loaded. So a boot option that prevents Hyper-V from loading the hypervisor also needs to be added. Hang on one sec, guys. I gotta talk to Sock. Hang on. Hang on. No. Hang on. All right, guys. I gotta show you something funny. My little vacuum cleaner. I'm not pooping. No. I gotta show you this. I ordered this thing like 2 months ago. And Sock is like, you got some weird package. And I'm like, what is it? It's like, it's a little motor that I ordered like 2 months ago to fix my little robot vacuum cleaner.
It was at the beginning of the
It finally arrived. Now I get to do surgery on it. Yeah, it arrived in like some weird pink packaging. Okay, hold on. Here, babe, put this somewhere safe. And put that in the trash. Thank you. Can you bring my water?
Actually, I just filled it up and bring it to you.
Thank you. Either poop or swear jar. It was neither one. It was a motor I've been waiting on for forever so I can try and fix my little robot vacuum cleaner. Okay, let's get back to the hypervisor shenanigans. All right, so he's got to do. Okay, so what were y'all saying about Fit Girl Repacks? Because I hadn't seen anything about it. So Fit Girl Repacks, by the way, is pretty famous gameware site, well known in the scene. Dude, I'm so out of any of the wear sites because I have this thing called disposable income now. Well, not really so much, but I used to. And so I would just go buy my games. My Steam library is just like everyone else's. It is bloated beyond all possible attempts that I could ever make an entire lifetime. Thank you. To ever get through that list. Okay. So what does Fit Girl here say? So I want to play the new de novo protected game. Is it safe to disable all this and use a hypervisor crack? There's no simple answer. This is Resector's personal take as someone with 10 years of experience in security-focused system administration and only a casual interest in gaming. So it's true that most common threats from are the info stealer malwares from fake download buttons, ransomware that encrypts your files, or joining a DDoS botnet. It's supposed such malware is usually not interested in higher privilege escalation or hardware sabotage, if it can already access what it needs. It's also true that the best protection against such malware is a good ad blocker, staying on a trusted sites and basically user education. That's true. More experienced PC users develop a false sense of security from seeing how successfully they avoid malware infections by, quote, being smart. They argue that they don't need all the restrictive, patronizing security features and AVs that just annoy with false positives because their malware-free track record proves that they know better. I don't have a malware-free track record. Nope, even I get popped from time to time. They also argued that more advanced threats are not aimed at home users, but corporate networks are too unlikely to care about, especially relevant for gamers. Virtualization can reduce system performance, and whether this is noticeable or not is also a point of contention. The other side of the argument is, you would be disabling technology that evolved for decades of security research, ignoring what experts consider necessary nowadays. You'd willingly give up protection against common classes of software vulnerabilities if you ever did more than get advanced malware. Or if you ever did get an advanced malware. It can breeze right through so your PC can stay part of the botnet for eternity or spread to more local devices more easily. If a lot of people remove these protections, especially DSC and memory integrity, for gaming, one of the main use cases for Windows PCs at home, not for much longer if NVIDIA has their way, it might be worth the effort for malware authors to target such setups. Widespread usage of hypervisors could hypervisor cracks could encourage manipulated fake releases because people who download these can be expected to disable all protections, including AV exclusions. The knowledge and effort required to take precautions and verify files properly is higher than with common threats and with the potential consequences much more severe. That's honestly one of the reasons why I don't get cracked games anymore. Because, I mean, I'm not saying I ever did. I'm not saying anymore. No, I'm saying, don't do it. Bad. Because you don't know who did the cracking has put what in there. What did they cut the game with when they cracked it, you know? I didn't even swear. I haven't seen anyone mention this outside the underground, so I thought it'd be good for you to go over. Dude, I'm enjoying the crap out of this, yes. In fact, I tell a lot of people, like, when they want to get into reverse engineering 44, they need to go look at a lot of how the game cracks are working, because a lot of times these guys who are going through and cracking games are sometimes 5 years to a decade ahead of where a lot of the security people are. It's kind of crazy. Oh, hang on one sec, guys. All right, sorry about that. Most, if not everyone I know, got into reverse engineering because of games. I did a little bit way back in the day, 44, but mostly what I did was just cracking the save games. I'll tell you this, for example. I did that for Sock one time because I noticed that she was playing some little, like, I don't know, kind of like a farming game, you know, like you build your little village and you expand it and things, and it was dragon themed or whatever. She was playing it for, I don't know, must have been 7 years ago. And I went and I checked some stuff, and it was on her Android tablet that she had at the time. So I dumped a copy of the game, looked through it, found the save file. I had her go spend a couple of the premium currencies, and then I checked the game file again, and I figured out where the premium currency was being stored on it, because it's all being stored locally. You don't have to log into the game for anything. And yeah, it was a real easy, just like flip a few bits, bam, she had infinite primo currency. That's about as far as I got into, like, game hacking in there. Let's see. Where did we go for this? I think I lost where I was at. There we go. All right, so let's pick back up right here. So aside from the disabled Windows features, even if you trust the authors of the hypervisor driver and even compile it yourself from source, a serious vulnerability in its code could instantly provide maximum and undetectable access to your system. Whether this game is worth the risk is something you will ultimately have to decide for yourself. True. So what's inside the cracks? Basically, every modern hypervisor bypass or crack consists of two parts. A VBS command.cmd file, special command line script which checks your existing setup and modify them to make your system prepared for the hypervisor cracks. This script is universal for all hypervisor games and is developed separately. It doesn't depend on actual game cracks. You can download the latest version. There, I'm done downloading that. But it's interesting. What are the changelogs? Fixed an issue where credential guard scenario's registry key was being restored on revert when the credential guard itself was not running before the script was executed. Ooh. So, I mean, they're getting deep into it. And then the second part they have is the actual cracker bypass itself. This consists of an executable in DLLs, which does the actual de novo bypassing and other additional DLLs, like the Goldberg Steam emulator, to get past the underlying Steam protections. And those files only work for specific game versions for which they were made. They won't work on different versions of the game. Yeah. Now, that is something I'm familiar with just from actually the modding scene. There's a lot of times where, like, you have to go lock the version of the game that you're working on or that you're playing, because your mods won't work if you go update the game. Did you ever come into contact with the actual Where's Underground scene as a teenager or so? I kind of did, yeah. Way back in the day. I have not been a teenager for 23 years now. So yeah, that was a long time ago. There were groups like Codex and Fairlight and Razor 1911 hanging out at IRC with pre-bots, catching any release of the scene. Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember all those things. Yeah, I'm 42 right now, so I've not been a teenager for 23 years. Oh man, my hands... Oh, I need to go wash my hands. They still smell like air filter cleaner, because I was cleaning the filters on the four-wheelers before this. There's not poop on my hands. It's air filter cleaner. This stuff's nasty too. All right, let's see. So what are the pre-requirements we've got here? So your CPU has to support one of two virtualization techniques. VTX for the Intel or AMD V for AMD CPUs. And I'd say probably 99% of all the modern CPUs have this. Google that the CPU model has supports virtualization for known gameplay, and before proceeding with any hypervisor cracks, check your BIOS for enabling those techniques. Do I need to disable secure boot or EFI guard? No. Current hypervisor bypasses don't require those changes. Wait, is that the actual end of the article? Oh, is this all comments down here? Oh, I thought this was like, oh God, what? No. I don't know what that was at the bottom. I just saw some woman in lingerie for an ad. Okay, so this was a lot less than I thought. I saw the scroll bar over here and it's teeny tiny. Right there, look at that thing, it's little. And I thought this was a long article. But hold on, that's all right. 44 hooked us up with another one. De novo analysis. This was pretty recent. This is from my birthday. All right. Birthday blog, nice. Yeah, Ty, you're still a spring chicken. Let's see. Oh wait, you're right, this was from last year, man. All right, it's from last year's, it was still on my birthday. My birthday is January 21st. This was from last birthday. All right, so forward, this post is intended, so we're still talking about the de novo DRM system. So that was like a quick brief overview of like actually some of like the hypervisor technologies and the virtualization stuff and how the actual like cracks work and the security implications to them, which I really like. Yeah. Dude, what's funny is when I was dating Sock, we had been dating for, I don't know, a couple weeks, and she invited me over for dinner with her mom and her sister. And her sister was like, I think, getting ready to go off to do her master's degree or something. So she was home briefly. I came over, we had dinner. And as I'm talking, my mom is, or her mom, Francine, Sock's mother is like, I just asked me my birthday and I told her when it was. She's like, damn it, another January birthday. So for us in our family, December, like late December, kicks off birthday season. And it goes like that. It goes until April. So like December to April is like peak birthday season in our family. It's like we have a birthday like every other weekend. It's insane. All right. Anyway, so enough about birthday season. Let's go look at this de novo DRM anti-tamper explanation here. All right, so for this post is intended for educational purposes only. De novo is arguably the most successful digital rights management solution to have ever existed, and is therefore an interest to many. The blog contains a large amount of my personal notes and correspondence with other reverse engineers, which contains information about the recent iterations of de novo, lots of which I haven't seen shared publicly before. I mean no harm towards Erdetto, which is the publishers of the de novo software, and thus certain information will be redacted from this post. Boo! De novo is an anti-tamper and digital rights management system. It's primarily used to protect digital media such as video games from piracy and reverse engineering efforts. Unlike traditional DRM systems, de novo employs a wide range of unique techniques to check and confirm the integrity of both the game's code and licensed users. The general idea is the general idea is nothing new. It can only be described as a semi-online DRM for reasons that will become clear shortly. The general idea as follows. User boots program.exe for the first time. Before the original game code is executed, de novo will collect hardware identification information regarding the current system and prepare it for sending over the internet. The program will then send this hardware information to a de novo hosted server. And what occurs at the server is obviously a mystery, but it likely applies reversible mathematical functions to combine the stolen constants with the whatever the stolen constants are, with the hardware information provided by the program. The server then sends this now mixed information, and we'll refer to this as the license file, back to the program. And once the program receives the license file, a local copy is created that program.exe can refer to on future boots, removing the need for another online request to be made, hence the term semi-online. Program.exe will be redirected to the original copy's entry point and begin executing the actual game code. And during this time, program exe will collect hardware information at runtime and attempt to decrypt stolen constants from the license file. Stolen constants, that's weird. So these now decrypted constants will then be used to execute original game instructions. So if it wasn't made clear already, the game will effectively end up performing user integrity checks. This is due to the fact that if the hardware information collected at runtime is not the equal of that which was used to create the license file of the de novo, from the de novo server, then an incorrect stolen constant will be decrypted and the game will likely suffer. Most of the time, it just is a direct crash. Hey, Mars, what's up, man? So considering what you've now achieved in your life, do you think it was a bad thing pirating software you weren't able to pay for anyways? Did it feed your curiosity and maybe and made you able to come to the point where you are now, where you probably provide more value to companies than ever cost them by stealing their software? Or should they have put you in jail for doing this? Should they have put me in jail? No. Should I probably have received some kind of punitive damage? I don't know, possibly. Hang on 1 second. I got to drop into OPSEC mode to check something. But for the most part, that did actually very much encourage me towards working in security. Hang on. I'm checking a couple of the stream monitors because they're showing that they're offline. So I'm just double checking real quick. Okay, they should all be working. All right. Something was saying that one of the streams had gone down, but no, it's working. But as we were going through and I was doing that, that actually did. So that was one of the things that at first attracted me to a lot of security was what I kind of specify as the separation between hacking as a skill set versus hacking as a culture. Initially, I was attracted to a lot of the hacker culture. And the older school hacker culture kind of still am. Not a lot of what's going on nowadays in a lot of the, let's call it the scene. But but the hacking technology, the skill set, still very much attracted to. Thinking about how to understand things deeply and work through them and get them to do unexpected things is still very awesome. Also, I think a lot of the things where people are like, for example, someone who downloaded a bunch of music from Napster back in the day, it's trying to charge them with millions of dollars of damage. Like, guys, get real. They didn't do millions of dollars of damage to you. And then even later, there was a research study published, and they found out that people are more likely to go through and sail the high seas, were in fact the people spending the most on that media. So it was a weird irony that came about. And then ultimately, what was realized is that sailing the high seas, flying your little flag with a little black skull and crossbones on it, that was ultimately a distribution problem. Yeah. So if you hadn't noticed, Netflix largely killed pirating. They did. It dropped to all-time lows when there was just Netflix. And then you started having everybody and their uncle start making their own streaming service. And the distribution became difficult. And then after the distribution became difficult, sailing the high seas went right back up. Yeah, exactly, Mars. It was convenient and it was well priced. And then when it wasn't convenient and it wasn't well priced, then it just started happening again. All right. Hang on one sec, guys. We'll chill for like 30 seconds. We'll let the ads finish up. Because that was Defus's question. I do want to answer it for him. By the way, I did get the text-to-speech system fixed, so that is up and working again. You'll pay more for streaming now than you used to pay for cable. That's true. Now, granted, I did not realize how much you could actually pay for cable until my dad passed away last year. Because I took over paying all of my mom's bills and making sure they were accounted for and doing her banking and stuff for her. Oh my lord! I think my mom and dad, I think, were paying close to $300 a month for cable TV. And I had to tell my mom, Mama, no, you cannot afford this. And I made my like second greatest regret of my entire life. And then I taught my mom how to use YouTube on her Roku. I get so many text messages. Have you heard of this? Have you heard of this? I don't know why. She just watches the ads. And I'm like, Mama, you know you can skip those, right? Like when the little skip button comes up. Oh, I know, but it might be interesting. I'm like, it's not interesting. It's an ad. They're trying to get money from you. Skip it. Skip it. Ugh. It's not only distribution, but also the pricing, and they have effed up the pricing. Yeah. And that's essentially what I was saying, Deepest, is that it's all of that was a symptom of another problem. It was distribution and pricing. For example, why do you think people go do cracks of really expensive software? It's a pricing issue. They can't afford it. And so so that's what people do. Anyway, let's go look at this. Let's look at the technical explanation for Denuvo here, because I have another story about Trivy being hacked, and I've got lots of stories for that, and I need to go through. We're going to try and piece the timeline together. I've got 6 different sources here we're going to kind of take a look at to see if we can piece together the Trivy hack after this one. All right. So more technical explanation. This section will investigate each protection mechanism and user integrity checks more thoroughly. Remember, there's far more to Denuvo than what is outlined here. So the license file, when Denuvo is first added to a binary, certain functions in the game are selected to become protected. All this means is that the function itself will be executed inside of a virtual machine, and select parts of certain instructions will be removed entirely from the binary. The license file is simply all of these removed bytes combined together and combined with the user's hardware identification via reversible mathematical functions. So it's important that whatever operations are applied are reversible. So they're using this is called symmetric encryption. Oh, actually, no, they could be using asymmetric encryption, but it doesn't sound like that's what they're doing. It just means that they're not using a hashing function. They're using an actual two-way encrypt-decrypt function. Could be symmetric, could be asymmetric. I'm willing to bet it's probably some kind of symmetric encryption, and part of the key is going to be that licensing, that hardware profile information that they use. So if it wasn't reversible, then the client would have no way of decrypting and getting the original constant values. So the license D words, since there are multiple stolen instructions, it's so interesting he calls them stolen instructions. I hope he kind of explains that here. Prior to handling the execution over the OEP, Denuvo will write selected parts of the license files into D words. Those are basically variables, scattered around the .vm section. .vm being the PE section that which contains the virtual machine code. Each D word will nick license word. Is effectively, we're going to nickname it license word. Is effectively a single instruction that was removed from the binary combined with the hardware identification information from the customer. So the encrypted constants and removed instructions as an example. So in order to make the idea concrete, I'll show you an example of how instructions are removed from the binary. Assume we have the following instruction here. So we have this, this assembly instruction right here, this add function, 2 integers, moves them around, So it's trivial to see that there exist parts of the instruction that will never change once compiled. For instance, this move function, moving from dword pointer RBP -4 to EDI. So here we're writing the constant of the contents of a 32-bit register EDI. Oh, sorry, I got this backwards. It's destination and then source. I always forget that when I'm looking at assembly because I don't do assembly very much. But they're writing the contents of a 32-bit register EDI. So there's the source, into this space here, the RBP register -4. In this case, Denuvo will strip the binary of the constant TAC4 and store it on their server. Now, the only way for anyone to access that constant, which would be required for successful execution of the add function, would be to request a license file from Denuvo that has the constant, that contains the license D words, which contain the encrypted constant -4. Recall that the license file contains the constants mixed with the hardware identification. Furthermore, Denuvo will convert the entire function for add into bytecode that only their virtual machine can understand. Present in this bytecode, there exists code which acts like a wrapper around the removed instruction. This wrapper is responsible for doing the following. It collects the corresponding hardware info at runtime. It reads the corresponding license dword that contains the encrypted constant for that particular function. It performs a series of mathematical operations using the license dword and the hardware identification collected at runtime to retrieve that value. In this case, it was -4. And this should be the inverse of whatever the server did. Execute the original instruction with the now decrypted constant. So that's kind of interesting. So what they're doing here is they're collecting the hardware identification info, using it to build some kind of decryption key, or at least a portion of the key. They go read whatever the corresponding value is from the license file, and then they decrypt it to get that original constant value back. And then they're able to then finally go execute that code inside of their VM with their customized instructions. So recall from a previous section, if the hardware identification collected at runtime does not align with that which used the Denuvo server to encrypt the constant, then step 3 will likely yield a result that does not equal -4 and cause an undefined behavior. So what are the user integrity checks? I'll now highlight all of the vectors Denuvo used to verify the integrity of the system executing the protected binary. By the nature of the protection, at least one instance of each check must be sent to the server when requesting a license file. I wish he defined what OEP was. I don't know what that is. After reading the previous sections, you may be wondering what happens if a user's hardware identification changes. Like you have a Windows update or a new CPU. I had this happen to me when the CPU died in this system and I swapped it out. It invalidated my Windows license key. I had to go buy another one. I was so pissed. Denuvo accounts for this by using special checks which execute just before handing control over to the OEP. I think that's the original execution program, maybe? So they'll simply perform some constant decryptions, but instead of using said constant to execute the instruction, they'll check if it's equal to what it should be. So these are the only checks that do this. Everything else assumes that the decrypted constant is correct and acts accordingly. If the result is not as expected, Denuvo will delete the locally saved license file and request a new one from the Denuvo server. Basically, a repeat of the process described previously. All right, so what is this? So the K-user shared data is a single page, now read-only memory, about 4096 bytes, that is mapped into every process running on a Windows machine. It contains information that the process may wish to access, such as the Windows version, the build number, or system time. A lot of the information it contains can be used to identify a machine, and therefore Denuvo makes good use of it to aid in their needs. Denuvo utilizes a bunch of these fields in here: the NT major version, the number of physical pages, this is going to be dependent on how much RAM you've actually got in the system. So it's kind of like a proxy for how much RAM you've got, if I remember correctly. Sweep mask, don't know what that is. NT build number, another artifact of like which version of Windows you're running. Same thing with product type. Product type is valid. Maybe that means that like you have a valid license. The NT minor version, process features. I'm guessing that's just a list of like which features you've actually got enabled in the hardware of your processor. Native processor architecture, and then the active processor count. I wonder if that's like your total core count. And no, these offsets are for 64-bit machines. Not surprised. I'd be surprised if Denuvo worked on 32-bit processors, because it's using a lot of virtualization technology that didn't come around until basically you only had like 64-bit version. I don't think there even is a 32-bit version of that. Windows 11 32-bit version. Is there one? Yeah, Microsoft does not offer a 32-bit version of Windows 11. I think Windows 10 was the last one to offer it. Actually, I'm not even certain about Windows 10. Yeah, there was a 32-bit version of Windows 10. They stopped distributing that in Microsoft stopped distributing 32-bit builds of OEM starting in 2004. Yeah, so they did have a 32-bit version of Windows 10, but you're likely 99.9% of the time going to be running the 64-bit version. All right, so the next part is the CPU ID instruction, and it's used to retrieve details about the processor. This is possibly the most common method Denuvo uses to collect hardware information, and as we'll show later, great lengths are taken in order to protect its execution from tampering. Denuvo makes use of the following parameters, which is basically the process info and feature bits, extended processor info and feature bits, and then the processor brand string itself, which that's going to be hard-coded to basically, like, I think, Intel or AMD. The syscall instruction then invokes an OS system call handler at privilege level 0, so like real low. And you may think of this as a way for user mode programs to communicate and ask the kernel for services. Denuvo makes use of a single parameter there, which is the nt query system information. So a lot of info there. The nt DLL, which is the user mode face of the Windows kernel, and it basically offers a rich API that user mode applications use to request the kernel to perform actions on their behalf, and is loaded into virtually every Windows process by the Windows loader and usually changes per Windows update, making it an ideal target for Denuvo. So they go and they do a check on which version of NTDLL you're using. So I didn't look as deep into this as I should have, but it appears that Denuvo will identify the user based on bytes of certain functions located in the NTDLL and the relative virtual addresses in there. They also look at the NTDLL image data directory. Let's see, because it usually changes slightly per Windows update or version, so it makes sense why Denuvo would target the image data directory. To be specific, it uses the following fields: RVA, the directory RVA in size, the export and import for it, the resource directory, the exception directory RVA in size, and the relocation RVA in size. Which in this case, the RVA, he said it was basically the relative virtual address. So it tells you what the offset's going to be in memory. And then they also look at the process environment block. So the PEB is similar to the K-user shared data in the sense that both process information. However, the PEB contains less global and more local information. Also, each process on the system has their own unique PEB. Another key difference is that the application is free to overwrite values in the PEB, making it not so ideal place to use for verifying hardware information, but Denuvo uses it regardless. And they look at the OS major and minor versions there, and the image subsystem major and minor versions. So they're pulling a lot of data from this system. Let's see. Oh, wait, hang on a second.
Welcome, Agent.
I just saw it, Falcon. Thank you, sir. What do we got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. I think there's 10 there. 10? Nice. Okay. Very cool. Oh, maybe we'll do that tonight. That'd be fun to do. Actually, we can't do it tonight because I got to figure out how to set up the like the random name picker thing. So we'll do that. We'll do that Sunday night. I will do it here on the screen. I didn't do it on the screen properly last time, and everybody complained. And it's like, it's rigged. I'll do it on the screen, and we'll get it knocked out here. Yeah, but guys, Senior Falcon here just hooked us up. This is for the, hang on, let me pull it up. This is for Let's Defend. No, that's not what I wanted to. Where is it? Where's the explanation of it? Oh, so it is letsdefend.com? Okay, hold on. Letsdefend.com. You lied to me. You lied to me, Falcon. That's okay. I'll forgive you this time. There we go. So this is for some hands-on blue team training. So they, we'll do that giveaway on Sunday night because I won't be here. You're not the worst, Falcon. Love you, boo. We'll do the Sunday. Well, if I was here Saturday, we'd do the giveaway on Saturday. But he just hooked us up with some keys for 1 month of Let's Defend. And so we'll do that Sunday night when I get back from the races, since we got races this weekend. And if I can, I'll try and actually do a little bit of a live stream from the race. We'll see what the, what is it? We'll see what the cell service is. A lot of times these races take place in lovingly the middle of nowhere, which I appreciate here in Texas. But cell service can either be amazing or non-existent. Last time it was pretty much non-existent. We were like down in a valley. There was just no radio signals getting into it. And so that wasn't going to happen next time. I'll see if I can get something for, maybe we can do like a little AMA Saturday night, hanging out by the campfire with some of the other folks at the race. But that's not going to be very conducive to doing the giveaway. So we'll do this Sunday night. Yeah. Don't let me forget, because I'll get distracted. The ADD is strong with this one. All right. Thanks, Falcon. I appreciate it, man. All right. Let's see here. All right. So what else does this machine get? God, it gets a lot of stuff. The X get BV value. They get Windows directory W. Computer name, computer username. Okay. So it retrieves a ton of information about the source machine whenever it's going to generate that license file. All right, so now how's it going to do the code integrity checks? So it uses a cyclic redundancy check, or a CRC. So as expected, de novo will perform scans of important handlers like CPU ID, syscall, etc., and maybe other code to make sure there's no hooks or tampering going on. Unfortunately, that's all I have to say regarding those checks. Oh man. There is a seemingly random .vm check in here. So frequently, de novo will construct a constant via reading a seemingly random amount of bytes from the VM section. This constant will then be used to perform calculations that would break given the constant changed, and take the following handler for instance. So it reads the next handler index. We see de novo read a random word from the VM's code. It decrypts it, updates whatever the VIP is, saves it, moves the address of the handler into RAX, and computes the next handler to jump to it. That's kind of weird. So if a user had placed a breakpoint, hook, or tampered with the word stored at this particular address, which I think he thinks is CPU ID, then the VM would likely end up executing a random handler, since the resulting value in R13 would be different, causing an unidentified behavior. Ooh, fascinating. So there's been a lot of people impersonating Hack the Box, folks, Falcon. Oh, they're impersonating specifically you. So I'll tell you something I do, guys. I don't have a good example in here, but I tell you what, we'll use me as an example. So one thing I will always do, right? If you click on someone's profile, let me see. Let me come over to the Blaise Bits Discord over here. So for example, actually, I'll pick on 44 real quick for a second, because I know he's a good sport. And you see their profile right here, and you see a list of mutual servers that you're in, right? What I will do is I will go in there and yeah, I just realized that. I just realized that, Falcon. Can you cycle those? Fucking hell, man. See, that's a swear jar. Oh, that's all right. Anyway, so what I was saying here is I get those a lot of times. Like, I'll get the little pop-up up here saying, hey, by the way, somebody new has come up and they are trying to talk to me. So I will go look at their profile, right? And it'll tell me what mutual servers we've got. A lot of times it's just one, maybe two. And I'll just go pop into that server, and I just come up to the little search bar right here, and you type from : that's it. And then you can see messages from that user. And they will always have 0 messages sent in that server. Always. And that's how you know they're a scammer. Every single time. And I even have it like here. My Discord message is DMs open to catch scammers, and they still message me. They still message me. So yeah, that's usually how I always go and make sure I've checked with phone. I had to go make a short video on that because it's a simple way to like find scammers real fast. Okay. So let's go check and see what else they got going on here. Miscellaneous checks that this Denuvo is going to do. It's going to check the virtual machine. So I don't know I don't know much about this virtual machine they're using. I believe there are different types. It seems simple at times, like a handler table and no rolling keys. Perhaps in a future blog post, I'll discuss it. If anyone would like to chat about it, feel free to contact me. If I knew more about it, I would, dude. Bit vector. Probably my favorite thing about Denuvo is that unlike traditional VMs, Denuvo doesn't store values in contiguous memory. Instead, they decide to store things like register values with their bytes and bits scattered everywhere. So this makes it incredibly difficult to see what's going on, especially when operations are being performed on those said values. This is probably the best example I can provide of Denuvo writing a value bit by bit. So extract bit 0x7 of EDI. Oh, dude, that's like, it looks like they're doing, what is it? It just sounds like this is kind of cool, but it looks like they're doing some kind of obfuscation to it. So they've scattered it and then they're piecemealing it back together. Now, what about for randomness? So randomness is the cornerstone of the protection. Without it, patch checking would be extremely trivial. So unlike other protection schemes, Denuvo doesn't utilize any API or the x86 random instruction. Instead, Denuvo opts to use values from the native registers. So this is genius as the inputs are basically guaranteed to change, whether that be due to an image base relocation or perhaps the player's character in-game lost health. One method used by Denuvo, and perhaps the only, is to generate randomness based on a native game register value using modular arithmetic. So here's a real quick example from their protected executable. Note, I'm unable to provide the assembly because it's extremely obfuscated and illegible, but the C demo should be sufficient. So what they do is they go check VCTX in the VM context, and then they either get CPU ID A or CPU ID B for whatever this handler is. So in this example, the CPU A and B functions are semantically identical. It makes no difference which one you decide to execute. That's weird. That is weird. They also used mixed Boolean arithmetic, and that's a method to translate expressions into a difficult to understand and analyze representation, all whilst maintaining the semantics of the original expression. Specifically, it replaces set expressions with arithmetic and Boolean operations. Oh, that's wild. So instead of doing just A plus B, it's going to do a bitwise ANDing plus a bitwise ORing. Oh, that's fugly. Look at this one for subtracting. Gross. Note, the equivalence of these expressions can be proven by a theorem prover such as Z3. I bet it could, but good lord, that's disgusting. So if you look closely, you'll find that to obtain number 3, this big, long, ugly, fugly thing, we simply substitute our identities for x or y and x plus y into x minus y repeatedly. It's a common and simple approach to generate an MBA expression. What do you say? Mixed Boolean arithmetic. Other and perhaps better methods for generating MBA are out of scope of this blog post, including linear and abstract algebra. But if you're interested, you can see the following. I love abstract algebra. That was my favorite subject in undergrad. That subtraction line is gross. I mean, they're all like that, but that one's just obnoxious. It is. I looked at this thing and I was like, okay, that's annoying. That's doubly annoying. This is just why God, why? Oh, this is the oh God, why meme right here. Let's see. So with regards to Denuvo, they make a great use of the mixed, what was it called? mixed Boolean arithmetic. Namely, they exploit results due to Zhao 2007 Theorem 2. So let E be a bitwise expression. Then E has a non-trivial linear MBA expression. And they also use proposition 1 here, from that Zhao 2007 paper. Every operation in Boolean arithmetic, algebra, think of this as Boolean and arithmetic operators, can be represented by a high degree polynomial MBA expression. And think about this. This guy is going. Now he's when he wrote this, I don't know if he still currently is, but at least up here it says he's a third-year computer science student. But still, he's going through and like doing this for reverse engineering a game anti-tamper. That's funny. Awesome that he went through and figured that out, though. So both of these results effectively imply that we can rewrite most of our x86 instructions as MBA expressions. For example, take the x86 instruction move RBX to RAX. So rewriting this, we could do like this, right? Where we do not X and X, and then or to against Y. So we push RAX, we do a not RAX, and then we do an ANDing operation against RAX and the pointer to RSP, pop RAX, and then we OR it against RBX. That's gross. Gross. I haven't done assembly in so long, and I didn't even do a lot of it, and that's gross. I get why this hasn't been broken very often. This is hell. Yeah, exactly. It's been and still is the de facto protection for games during launch. Oh, I bet. I do find it interesting what was the other one name? Fit Girl? No, what was it? Yeah. So what Fit Girl was talking about was it's kind of interesting that games will put this in the beginning when most of the hype is on, and then strip it out later. I do find that interesting. I also wonder how the game developers optimize for performance. I know. Don't laugh too hard. You'll hurt yourself. With this kind of obfuscation going on in the game, it's crazy. I had an exercise back in college in 2010 where I had to just add 2 numbers in assembly. I absolutely hated it. I know. I find assembly extremely interesting, and I probably should go do more with it. But I have other stuff. Just gonna be real with you. There's too many things. Everything interests me. I have to pick the things that interest me the most, and assembly just ain't it, baby. All right, let's see what else he's saying. So, by that Zhao 2007 Theorem 2, we can apply further mixed Boolean arithmetic transformations onto the BA algebra instruction present and in the rewritten form, further complicating the expression. This example was purposely made simple, but here's the some raw de novo VM code. It's ugly. Good God, no. Make it stop. Make it stop. So not so simple anymore. Further application of MBA includes software watermarking and constant hiding, both of which can be found in Zhao 2007's for protection methods. Although I'm not sure if de novo makes use of them. Ooh. I think developers just give them the binary and it's that de novo does the heavy lifting. Yeah, but at the same time, there has to be some kind of play testing for it, I would think, right? Like basic play testing, like, okay, cool, we got the game working solid. Let's go lay the DRM over it and then go test it. I would think, anyway. Same with Perl. Ugh. No Perl. No Perl. They have to because there are a number of people that will not install a game with de novo, so they want to get the addicts up front and still get the normal people. They need to take it, and then so they take it out eventually. Oh, gotcha. Right, all the things in Perl, folks. No Perl. No. Oh, a buddy of mine that I worked with, Falcon, he was an old school like Linux admin, graybeard, like had been using. Like he just recently set up a Solaris system at his house. Like that's the level of graybeard that he is. Well beyond me, right? And he loves Perl. It was his first like actual programming language. And every time we did a pen test and he needed to do any kind of data processing, he always wrote the scripts in Perl just to piss me off. And I know that's why he did it. There's a guy on YouTube that demos reversing Denuvo EXE on older games. Ooh, neat. I haven't heard anything for a couple of minutes. Ad just relooped again and again. What? Freaking Twitch. Hey, Ken, what's up, dude? I was all about the Perl back in the days. Dude, I told him, I was like, you might as well just stop writing these Perl scripts, bro, because this is just Perl before swine. Hey. I'd write stuff in Perl just to piss off my teammates, too. You people and your Perl. I know. So I actually did not really start diving into Linux until probably 2010. So Perl was kind of out of vogue by that point. All right, let's see what else they got here. They do on-the-fly decrypt and re-encrypt of the CPU ID. So sometimes, as opposed to executing a bog standard CPU ID handler in the VM, Denuvo will decrypt a CPU ID in the VM section, execute it, and then quickly re-encrypt it again. So I imagine this is done to prevent crackers from pattern matching every CPU ID instruction. Although this likely wouldn't be very helpful to the cracker, the use of real-time encryption and decryption has an interesting implication. So the VM shares handlers with different threads of execution. Therefore, what if two threads attempt to execute the same encrypted CPU ID simultaneously? If it wasn't obvious, a spin lock is required to prevent the threads from causing undefined behavior. However, the spin locks must be fast because otherwise you're executing already obfuscated code and now you're doing it in a loop. So to remedy this, Denuvo opted to completely leave the main spin lock logic from any obfuscation. Therefore, crackers can pattern scan for the spin lock, which in turn tells them where the encrypted CPU ID is. And Denuvo's solution to this was encrypt the spin lock, which requires yet another spin lock. Just spin locks all the way down. It's just turtles all the way down. I don't know if they encrypt the spin lock, which monitors the encrypted spin lock, which is monitoring the encrypted CPU ID instruction, but it isn't far-fetched to think so. We can't encrypt this vital piece of information. Well, sure we can, if we encrypt it with another vital piece of information. Perl's only really good at regular expressions nowadays if you had to use it, although pretty sure everything it does that better now too. So I have one experience, and it wasn't directly with Perl, but when I first started streaming and we were going through and doing a lot of work in Cobalt Strike, we were going through and making aggressor scripts in there, and I was trying to use the regex system built into Sleep, which is, I think, Java-based or whatever, but I forget the exact indications of this, but all the indications were that it should have been Perl-compliant regex. It was not. I spent 5 hours on stream fighting that thing and not disassembling it, but like testing it and figure it out to finally realize it's just using whatever the hell it feels like for its regex compliance. I went through and I was double checking it. I was in, I think regex 101 is the website. Regex 101. I think that's the site. Yeah. Here we go. If you've never seen this and like you need a place to come like debug your regex, this is a great place in here. You can build your expression here. It supports all different kinds of flavors and modes of operation. Put your text in and then see an explanation of like how it actually processed it. Everything looked perfect in here, but not in the aggressor script. No. God, that was annoying. Dude, Sleep is freaking disgusting. Sleep is nasty. Now, speaking of Cobalt Strike, they recently introduced a REST API to work with it. I have not gotten to play with it. Sleep is a coding language that is written for Java. It's kind of like Perl inside of Java, if you think about it that way. And it is the coding language that is used for aggressor scripts inside of Cobalt Strike. And it's ugly as hell. You lost me at Java, fuck that. So many people have that same reaction. I'm one of them. I had to write some aggressor scripts for a red team back in the day. It's such a beatdown. All right. Let's see what else they've got in here. We're almost at the end of this one, and then we're going to start actually digging into the trivia hack that happened. Let's see. Anti-exception based hooking. So in the early days, Denuvo was attacked primarily by patching every hardware information check, ensuring that it returned the correct information required for the correct constant to be calculated later onwards. One method that was frequently used was to intercept CPU ID and syscall instructions via the exception-based hook, although one could nicely register a vector exception handler using the Windows API. The main approach was to instead replace each CPU ID and syscall instruction with a UD2 instruction to trigger the invalid opcode exception and hook the K-user exception dispatcher to load the correct hardware information into the correct register when required. And this approach worked well, namely because both CPU ID and syscall are 2 bytes long, and so you only had to patch a single byte to hook them. However, Denuvo implemented a rather genius patch. Prior to executing the CPU ID handler, Denuvo will write important values high up in the unused stack space. Then, later on, it will retrieve this value to make important calculations that would cause undefined behaviors otherwise. So this destroyed any exception-based hook since majority of the time an exception is triggered, Windows will write an exception record high up in the unused stack space. So you can probably see where this is going. I don't. Explain it to me. Now, whenever the CPU ID is hooked via an exception, the important value will become overwritten with the exception record. Okay, so they're using it like a stat canary in there, causing undefined behavior later on. So I believe this can be bypassed if you attach a debugger to the process and set certain flags when it comes to exception handlers, but the method of patching every hardware check is still cumbersome due to randomness anyway. Nice. Pale's like, watch this video, it's awesome. All right, so what about for the cracking side of it? So for patching the hardware ID checks, one of the first attempts at defeating this protection may be to manually patch every hardware ID check, ensuring that the correct hardware information is returned each time. And so the reason you would need this is because let's say you have a cracked copy of the game, you move it to your system hardware is obviously not going to match, and you have a license file that will work with decrypting using your hardware information. Then what you do is you basically mask it, you make it look like you're using the same hardware by intercepting the calls the program makes to check the hardware values. So that's what they're doing. They're kind of like man-in-middling the checks and to force it to generate the identical key. So, however, as outlined in the section above, this proves to be extremely difficult. Not only are you faced with complicated CRC, but also randomness that makes it close to impossible for a single person to find all those checks and let alone patch them. What about patching the constant decryption? So similar to patching all the hardware information, one could target the constant decryption routines itself, or instead, returning the correct constant as opposed to whatever was incorrectly decrypted, due to the misaligned hardware information. Furthermore, this approach is far more reasonable than patching all the hardware information checks, since there currently exists no CRC or randomness for these routines. However, in a trace of around 10 million plus x86 instructions, finding a single constant decryption is not a straightforward task. Nope. What about completely restore the binary exe? So one can tell by the name of this approach just how difficult it would be. This would require the fix-up or devirtualization of potentially thousands of instructions. Despite this, I know of one instance where Denuvo protected binary was completely restored. Interesting. So what they're doing is they're basically going through, finding all the bits that have been stripped out, checking them from the protected Denuvo VM, and then patching them back into the original binary. That sounds like a crap ton of work. But hey, if that's your hobby and that's how you want to spend your time, you are allowed to. So for the hypervisor, a slightly more advanced approach is to utilize a hypervisor to spoof all the necessary hardware information. This is, of course, easier said than done, although both AMD and Intel support the ability to intercept instructions such as CPU ID and xgetBV, and syscall hooking from a hypervisor level isn't too difficult either. I suppose the only difficult section would be patching the NTDLL and K-user checks without breaking every other application on the computer. Actually, I'm surprised that there doesn't already exist a peer-to-peer hypervisor-based solution. This is funny that he's got all the kudos, like, redacted in here. That's pretty cool. So final words. Let's wrap this one up. Denuvo is definitely a beast at what it does. It has demonstrated time and time again its ability to keep games protected for months, sometimes even years. Whether that's due to lazy crackers or incompetency, Denuvo has clearly come out victorious. In my opinion, I don't think Denuvo is going anywhere anytime soon. Now, granted, there could have been some stuff come up from this. This was from last year, but still, that's pretty awesome. That was a great breakdown of it. Thanks, 44, because I learned a ton from that one. I love it. I love it. Okay, let me see if I've got these in the correct order real quick. Oh, this is ugly in dark mode. Team PCP deploys canister worm on NPM following trivia compromise. Let's see. This is the one from Wiz. Let's see. This is the one from Sync. Let's tell you what. Let's do this in this order right here. We'll check the Synac one, or Sync one right here. In this article. Can I delete this? Ah, there we go. I can get my left space back. There we are. Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll go through the Sync article first. We'll check it out and see what they've got, because they do really good work. So does Wiz. Their articles about some of these malware campaigns are pretty good. We'll check on these, and then we'll go through some of the other related ones in here. We'll check them out. I forget how you pronounce it. It's S-Y-N-K. I pronounce it Sync, like a sync-in source. Yeah, that'd be pretty good. All right, I tell you what, I need to run to do, take care of something and go to the bathroom real quick. Well, what was the bottom line? Sort of like a BYOVD attack. Yeah, I liked it 44. It was pretty awesome. Okay, give me just like 1 minute, guys. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Guess who's back? Back again. Blaise is back. Tell a friend. Seriously, tell a friend. Come hang out. We have fun. All right. Oh, so Falcon Panda was I don't know if y'all know this, but Panda was my old dog. She passed away. When was that? It must have been about 2 years ago. It wasn't. Maybe it was a year ago. No, it was 2 years ago. Yeah. And she was another Boston Terrier, and actually is Peach's sister. They were from the same litter, and I was like, oh, I miss Panda. Peaches is a sweetie. Peaches is a lot dumber than Panda, but Peaches is a sweetie. Panda was a very, very smart dog. I just picked a random animal. Yeah. I'd show her, but she's being very skittish right now. She needed water. That's what took me a little bit longer. And I was going and checking on some stuff. All right, let's check this out here. So this was big deal that happened. And if you're not familiar with this, so Truvy got compromised and it ended up just filtering through a lot of other stuff in here. So let's start with this one. How a poisoned security scanner became the key to backdooring Light LLM. Now, for some additional context, at my company, we use Light LLM. However, we used pinned versions. So we don't let anything update to the latest and greatest. We keep track of what's going on in security feeds, figuring out when we need to go update something. But we use pinned versions of these things. So we were not affected by this, thankfully. However, some of my compadres and other security firms were hit by this. Let's see. So on March 24th of 2026, two versions of Light LLM's Python package on PyPy were found to contain malicious code. The packaged versions 1.82.7 and 1.82.8 were published by a threat actor known as Team PCP. By the way, they're on Twitter now. You can look them up. After they obtained the maintainers' PyPy credentials through a prior compromise of Trivy, an open source security scanner used in Light LLM's CI/CD pipeline. It's always the CI/CD, man. Always. That's why I like it. I like whenever I'm on a pen test and I see a CI/CD, I was like, yeah. So the malicious versions were available for approximately 3 hours before PyPy quarantined the package. Light LLM is downloaded roughly 3.4 million times a day. Sync had been tracking this incident, and so if you're a Sync customer, you've already seen an in-app banner alert received, basically gotten a notification of it. Let's see. Leading events. Let's take a look at this. So how it was discovered. Callan McMahon at Future Search was testing a Cursor MCP plugin that pulled in Light LLM as a transitive dependency. Shortly after Python started, his machine became unresponsive due to RAM exhaustion. He traced it to the newly installed Light LLM package and found this Light LLM init.pth file, a 34K file in site packages, double base 64 encoded. Ooh, they're never gonna pull that apart if it's double base 64. The RAM exhaustion was a side effect of the payload, not an intentional feature. The PTH mechanism fires on every Python interpreter startup because the payload spawns a new Python subprocess, and the new process also triggers PTH execution. The result was an unintended fork bomb. McMahon published his finding on futuresearch.ai, and the disclosure spread to a bunch of different Reddits and Hacker News within an hour. So what's the attack chain here? The attack on Light LLM started 5 days earlier with Trivy. So on March 19th, the attackers wrote Git tags in the Trivy GitHub Action repository to point to a malicious release, version 0.69.4, carrying the same credential harvesting payload and exfiltration infrastructure used in later operations. On March 23rd, the same infrastructure was used in a separate attack on Checkmark's kicks, keep infrastructure as code secure. The C2 domain, which impersonates a Checkmark security company, was registered and activated for this operation. So on March 24th, LightLLM's CI/CD pipeline ran Trivy as part of its build process, pulling it from apt without a pinned version. The compromised action exfiltrated the PyPy publish token from the GitHub Action Runner environment. With that credential, the attackers published LightLLM 1.827 and then 1.82.8, each containing that malicious payload. And then there was a post on Hacker News from the LightLLM maintainer. He said, "This is an evolving situation. Here's what we know so far. It looks like this originated from the Trivy used in our CI/CD pipeline. So if you're on the proxy Docker, you're not impacted. We pin our versions in the requirements.txt. The package is quarantined on PyPy, which blocks all downloads, and we're investigating the issue." And so there were two delivery mechanisms here. So in the .7 version, it was source injection. The payload was base64 encoded and embedded directly inside proxyserver.py and executes when anything imports the LightLLM.proxy class, and the standard, which is a standard import for LightLLM's proxy server mode. For the .8 version, a .pth file was added, and this version added LightLLM_init.pth to site packages. The PTH mechanism fires on every Python interpreter startup with no import required, included with the pip or Python C or any IDE language that starts Python. Ooh. What are PTH files? Not familiar with that. Don't test in a live environment? I know, right? So PTH files in Python are path configuration files processed by the site module at startup. They go in site packages. Since Python 3.5, lines starting with import execute code used for this. So, okay. That didn't help out a lot. PTH equals pass the hash? It does. That's why this is throwing me off. I'm like, wait, what's a PTH file in this case? Pass the hash. There we go. All right, let's continue on with this. So the PTH file, though, gets loaded on every Python invocation is the key thing to remember here. So the PTH file is correctly declared in the wheels record, so it passes pip's hash verification. The package passes all standard integrity checks because the malicious content was published using legitimate credentials, not injected after the fact. Sync-learn has a detailed walkthrough of how this class of attack works. Oh, cool. CPython maintainers have acknowledged the security risk of PTH startup hooks in an issue, but no patch has been applied yet. All right, so what about the actual payload itself? So stage one was doing a bunch of information collecting. It looked at system data like the host name, environment variables, running processes, network routes, and recent auth logs. And this is meant to be running on a Linux system, so it looks in var log auth. It also grabs credentials like SSH private keys, env files, Git credentials, API keys from shell history, Slack and Discord webhook tokens, CI/CD configs for Jenkins, Travis CI, and Terraform, and password hashes from Etsy Shadow. Are they running this as root, bro? Come on. What else we got? So it also looks for cloud credentials. So AWS credentials and configs, GCP and Azure service account files, cloud metadata via indirect IMDS queries, and also AWS Secrets Manager and SSM parameter stores. They're just stealing all those cookies. So they also had a container and orchestration setup. So Docker's config.json, which had registry credentials, Kubernetes kubeconfig files, service account tokens, secrets, and certificates. Ooh. And also looked for cryptocurrency. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, Monero wallet files, and seed phrases. Ledger hardware wallet configurations were also grabbed. Damn. They're like, hey, let's get all these creds. And also, if you got any crypto, we'll take that too, bro.
Here, and I'm going to show you what this is.
Ooh. Let's see. What for exfiltration? Let's see. So the collected data got encrypted before transit. So a 32-bit AES-256 key is generated via OpenSSL rend. The data is encrypted with AES-256 CBC. Let's see. At least they use CBC instead of codebook. The session key is encrypted with a hard-coded 4096 RSA key, and everything gets bundled into a tar.gz file. And the bundle then gets posted to models.lightllm.cloud via curl. Was that the malicious site? Oh yeah, it is. So the models.lightllm.cloud domain is distinct from the legitimate lightllm.ai domain and was registered on March 23rd, one day before the malicious packages were published. The RSA public key in the payload is identical to the one used in the Truvi and Kix payloads. Wiz researchers confirmed this match across 3 operations, marking it the strongest single technical attribute link. And we're going to read the Wiz article here in just a second, because there's a lot to this. It spread far. Temporary files created during execution were session key, payload encryption, session key encrypt, and that TPCP tar.gz file in the temp directory.
You'll actually continue to hear
Let's see.
your ear will just completely fill in all
We skipped that song. Now, what else? They also had a third stage in here for persistence and lateral movement. So local persistence wrote a backdoor Python script to config sysmon.py or to the root version of it. So basically, they're whatever the sysmon.py is, they're doing a backdoored version of it. Creates a systemd user service, damn, with the description system telemetry service, and also registers and enables that service after it creates it. Nice. Let's see, the persistence script polls the checkmarks.zone domain every 5 minutes for a URL, downloads it to the temp directory, marks it as executable, and runs it as a background process. State gets tracked in another temp file called the .pg state. At the time of analysis, the endpoint returns YouTube URLs. The operator can switch to delivering live payloads as well. It's returning YouTube URLs. It's got to be a rickroll. It has to be. That's wild, guy. Was this a nation state hack or crime syndicate? I'm thinking this is more of some kind of like crime team. Basically, this is not nation state level stuff. They don't tend to do these kind of broad things like this that are more or less indiscriminate exploits. That's not their typical forte. Not saying they don't do it. I'm saying there's not a lot to be gained from that. They have better, more targeted means to do that kind of stuff. All right, so they also have something in here for Kubernetes lateral movement. So if the script finds a Kubernetes service account token at the standard mount path, it reads all secrets across every namespace. Ugh, that's a bad configuration. Damn it, this mouse. Where did it go? Hold on, there we go. So it reads all the secrets across every namespace. It then attempts to deploy a privilege pod to every node in kubesystem using Alpine latest, and the pods mount the host file system and install the sysmon backdoor on the underlying node. Oh no. Oh no. So this is actually an exploit I've done against live Kubernetes systems before. And here, so since we're doing a lot of Kubernetes side questing right now, let me show you what it kind of does here. Let me clear this out. Right, so in Kubernetes, we've got pods running inside of nodes, right? So let's think about like in the larger infrastructure, right? So typically what we have is we can have one or more kind of like master nodes, right? So I'll mark these. This would be like master node 1, right? This would be master node 2 right here. And these guys will talk to each other. They're used for coordinating everything in the system.
Virus infection alert.
Hey, parts people! Welcome in, Raiders. Hold on. You have to send the Cookie Monster to slow them down. Welcome in, everyone. There we go. Let's see. What we got working at? Hold on. Gotta give you a shout out real quick. There we go. Get that taken care of. Welcome in, Raiders. We are actually doing a little bit of analysis of a system called Truvi, which is a security center that got compromised. And it had some pretty wide-reaching effects, including compromising Light LLM to infect a lot of systems in there. So what we're doing right now is they also had some, it was a very multi-stage malware. It did a lot of credential stealing. It also looked at how to move laterally in systems where it was deployed. One of those systems typically kind of being Kubernetes. So what I'm doing right now is explaining kind of like what it's doing in here. So this was a really cool like escalation path that it took to kind of maintain its persistence in the system. So when you have a Kubernetes system, it works on a kind of like a multi-node system, right? So for example, these would be our two master nodes here. And then we're going to actually have these worker nodes sitting down here like this. Yeah. So these are our worker nodes. So we'll call this worker node 1. This will be worker node 2. This one will be worker node 3. And then this will be worker node 4. So let's say, for example, one of the systems over in worker node 2 gets compromised, right? So what they were doing, and all these systems are interconnected to each other, right? It's like a complete mesh. The master nodes are handling scheduling everything between these, right? So it goes kind of like this. They're like full mesh in here. The master nodes handle scheduling amongst themselves and then send basically jobs down to each of these worker nodes where they go and deploy pods. Pods are collections of containers inside them. So a pod can have at least one container, or it can have multiple kind of working inside it. So let's say, for example, they have compromised this one container. What they will then do, from what they were saying, is they can actually talk to the main Kubernetes system, and if it's configured in default configurations or in really weak ones, they can then basically read authentication keys from this system and then be able to issue jobs to these. So there's a certain namespace called kube system in here, kube system. And that's kind of like the main namespace where all the pods that are used to handle all the workloads kind of hang out in there. So once they can do this, they can then go and deploy pods to all these other ones in here. Now you might think, okay, cool, what's the purpose of that? Well, if you think about it, this worker node is its own operating system and has its own drive right here. So that's root right there. So what do? They come over here, they deploy a new pod, and actually they'll deploy a new pod into this one as well, like this, right? So let me draw some arrows in here. So we'll have a new infected pod here, and we'll have a new infected pod here, just like this. And then each of these is going to have this exact same kind of root file system, more or less running on them. So we'll have that here, and we'll have one here, and we'll have one here. So what happens? You can actually mount directories from that system into the container. Now it should be blocked by default, but if your Kubernetes environment isn't configured very heavily, what they do is they actually mount this into that malicious pod. So then what happens? Now they've got full root level access to everything on the system. They're probably running as root inside these containers. And now they've got access to everything running on the host operating system, meaning any secrets or keys or anything else, or various commands they want to run, they can use that to then jump down into the underlying hardware, which plays in perfectly to what we were talking about earlier with virtualization and hypervisors, that if you can control the layer below where the code is running, you can control the code. And that's exactly what they're doing here. So once they get down and they deploy these malicious pods, they're then storing persistence in the same way they did inside the pod or other systems with a backdoored system D service running on here. That's brutal. That's brutal. I don't know if I've ever seen any that are specifically had attacks targeted against like Kubernetes. That's wild. These guys did some thinking. Oh, that's funny. All right. So the guys that behind this is a group called Team PCP. I've not heard of them prior to this event. But they've been active since December of 2025. Oh, so they're fairly new on the scene. That's probably why I hadn't heard of them. The actors maintain a Telegram channel and embed strings like Team PCP Cloud Stealer in payloads. Wiz has tracked the full campaign before. The light LLM compromise is phase 9 of an ongoing campaign. consistent infrastructure across all operations. They use the same RSA key pair, the same kind of exfil file that they're going to use to steal everything, and the docs file prefix on GitHub repositories used to dead drop C2 staging. All three domains in this operation share the same registrar, which is spaceship, and the same hosting provider, which is Deminin.bv. What are they? I'm not even sure about this. So that's a Dutch service provider in the Netherlands. And they're also a hosting company. Operates a couple of AS numbers, manages IP ranges. And a lot of it is linked to spam and abuse reports. Go figure. Yeah, Icarus, the Kate's bit is wild. I had not seen that before from any kind of malware campaign. Do you see the possibility of using this as a downstream attack on major infrastructure? On major infrastructure, I don't know. Because, well, actually, this hit a lot of things. Because it actually hit TrueV first. And because it compromised TrueV, it's a typical supply chain attack and then filtered down to everything else. Light LLM is probably just the best well-known one that got hit. Anything that auto-laterals is wild? Yeah, no kidding. Let's see, what else did they do? The actor also deployed Canister Worm, which uses Internet Computer Protocol, ICP2, as a C2 channel. ICP canisters cannot be taken down by domain registrars or hosting providers. Al-Qaeda security researchers documented this as first observed use of ICP as a C2 mechanism on supply chain attacks. This is the, what do they call it? Yeah, Internet Computer Protocol. And this is some kind of blockchain-backed compute resource system that's in there. It was funny because I remember when it first debuted, like they did their initial token offering and it was like $600 per token. And I think it's down to like 30 cents now. Oh, $2.39. Yeah. But if you look at when it first started, boosh. So it started, yeah, I remember this. May 9th of 21. And then by, what was this? In just like 2 months later, it's down to like 5% of its value. And then now it's just been downhill ever since then. It's currently sitting at $2.39. Yeah. Yeah, Icarus, fucking blockchain. Oh, let's see. Oh, look. So what's the next part here? So a component called HackerBot Claw uses AI agents, namely OpenClaw, for automated attack targeting. Al-Qaeda researchers document this. Actually, we talked about this, didn't we? Yeah, I didn't realize this was the same group. Al-Qaeda researchers documented this as one of the first cases of AI agents used to operationally in a supply chain attack. So when community members began reporting the compromise in GitHub, starting with issue 24512, the attacker posted 88 bot comments from 73 unique accounts in a 102-second window. The accounts used were previously compromised developer accounts, not purposely created files. And they found that 76% account overlap with the botnet used during the trivia disclosure. Hold on, I want to go look at this. So they said this posted at 12:44 UTC time. So this guy is saying, so if we look at the actual issue up on GitHub, malicious light LLM init PTH in this PyPy version, which is a credential stealer. Let's see. Yep, we've been pwned by this. Version 1827 is also compromised. Let's see. This should be moved to not planned as it makes the issue less visible. It should be pinned to give it more visibility. Let's see. I want to see what the bot comments. Let me see. Update on more findings. Relevant Y Combinator conversation. Let's see. Shared file hash. Yeah. Exactly what I needed. Thanks. Psh. This solved my issue. Thank you. People are like, you're just a fucking bot. Let's see. Other check marks in here. Let's see. I'm guessing a lot of the people have gone through and actually, just out of curiosity, there are hundreds of comments on this thread that are some variation of appreciate the help. This fixed it for me. Are those accounts compromised or just bots? The accounts, the conversations probably got deleted out of here, but that's funny. That's scary and hilarious. Let's see. All right, so back over here. Let's see what they did. So using the compromised maintainer account, the attackers closed the issue as not planned and made commits to unrelated repositories with the message Team PCP update. The community opened a parallel tracking task and continued discussion on Hacker News, where the thread reached 324 points. So the core impact is the affected versions on PyPy were live for approximately 3 hours. The following projects filed security PRs or issues on March 24th. So it looks like it was done by MLflow, OpenHands, Crew AI, Langwatch, Arise Phoenix, Nanobot, Dreadnode Rigging. Oh, did Dreadnode get hit with this? Let me see. Oh, so somebody did a PR for it to pin Light LLM to mitigate supply chain attack. Got it. So people were basically going through and doing PRs to pin that Light LLM version to help prevent it. And then they go through a bunch of detection mechanisms to go through and find it. And the remediation is BTFO your system and start from scratch. That's it. I mean, not really. There's other things you could do. So you could go through and uninstall Light LLM. If you did install it, you want to go and make sure you kill that sysmon pi and make sure you disable that sysmon service and do a daemon reload. Also remove any of the artifacts from the system. Oh, man, that's funny. So why did pip hash verification not catch this? They alluded to it earlier, but let's read what they say about this. Hash verification confirms that a file matches what PyPy advertised, but does not indicate whether the advertised content is malicious. So the LightLM init PTH file in the .8 version is correctly declared in the wheels record file with a matching hash. So pip install require hashes would have passed. The package passes all standard integrity checks because the malicious content was published using the legit credentials, so there's no hash mismatch. No suspicious domains or misspelled package names. Let's see, the only install detection path is inspecting whether the package installed a PTH file or whether those files contained patterns like subprocess, base64, or exec, which isn't widely, there's no widely deployed pip plugin currently does this automatically. Yeah, I don't know why people were talking about the hashes when it was published by the maintainer. Yeah, I think that's probably the thing they don't get for this. Let's see. The broader pattern. So the target selection across the campaign focused on tools with elevated access to automated pipelines. So a container scanner like Trivy, an infrastructure scanning tool like Kix, and an AI model routing library like LightLM. Each of these tools requires broad read access to the system it operates on, like credentials, configurations, and environment variables by design. LightLM is increasingly being deployed as a centralized language model gateway that stores API credentials for multiple model providers. In that configuration, the credential set accessible from a single compromised host is broader than a typical application. So you were asking about why they might have been doing this or what was the goal of this. Is why, Ty, right here. Oh, that's interesting. Now, hold on. So this goes a little bit further in this, and this is actually, that was a knock-on effect. The original source is now the Trivy compromise. This one's coming from the guys over at Wiz. Actually, hold on. I think... Kaido. So Kaido talked about the HackerBot Claw. Let me see. Kaido did talk about ICP2. Oh, come on, man. Don't tell me they took it down. There's too much power in this. Ah, here we go. No, damn it. Hold on. I lost it. This isn't the right one. Hold on. I already have this one. Oh, I guess we'll talk about it here in a second then. But let's look at this real quick. So for the trivia compromise, everything you need to know about the latest supply chain attack. So on March 19th, threat actors compromised Aqua Security's Trivia vulnerability scanner, injecting credential-stealing malware into official releases and GitHub actions. So while Aqua reports they have since removed malicious releases, organizations using Trivia should audit their environments immediately. Update from March 22nd, Wiz Research continues to track Team PCP activity following the initial Trivia compromise. The threat actors had expanded operations to NPM ecosystem via a worm called Canister Worm, leveraging stolen publish tokens. Additionally, the ICP-hosted fallback C2 is now actively serving an iteratively developed payload called kamikaze.sh. Aqua has published blog posts and GitHub security advisories. Another update from March 22nd said attackers were able to publish malicious images of Trivia to Docker Hub. The attacker also demonstrated continued access to Aqua by publishing internal Aqua repositories publicly. And as of 21:31 UTC time, the IPC, I think they meant to say ICP, the ICP canister has been made unavailable due to policy violations. Note, the incident is distinct from previous instances earlier this month where Mega Game 10418 exploited a PWN request and then later flagged by HackerBot Claw. Interesting. All right, so what happened? Wiz Research, in concert with other industry partners, identified a multifaceted supply chain attack targeting Aqua Security's Trivia. The attack compromised multiple components of the Trivia project, including the core scanner, the Trivia Action GitHub action, and the Setup Trivia GitHub action. The attack was conducted with access retained following incomplete containment of an earlier incident. RIP. The threat actor, self-identifying as Team PCP, made imposter commits that were published to a actions checkout. Okay, sorry, it kind of word wrapped here. I brain farted. And they also made ones to Aqua Security Trivia where they spoofed a user on there. And we've already showed that you can spoof users on GitHub. There's no integrity checks for it unless you do commit signing, which nobody really does. So the Trivia repository's version 0.69, nice, .4 tag was pushed, triggering a release. This resulted in malicious checkout that fetched credential stealer info from a typo squatted domain and backdoored binaries being published to GitHub releases, Docker Hub, GitHub's container registry, and Elastic Container Registry. RIP. The maintainers have since removed these malicious artifacts. The attacker also compromised the Aquabot service account and then abused that access to push malicious workflows to 3 other repositories and steal additional credentials from Aqua, including GPG keys and credentials for Docker Hub, Twitter, and Slack. I love that everybody still calls it Twitter instead of X. I still call it Twitter. So the secrets were exfiltrated to a Cloudflare tunnel C2. And furthermore, 75 out of 76 Trivia action tags were force pushed to malicious versions, and 7 setup Trivia tags were force pushed as well. Man, they went to town on them. Icarus, remind me what GHA is? I'm drawing a blank. Oh, GitHub action. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm there. I'm slow, but I'm there. Yeah. I live in acronym soup hell. So I'm always like, wait, what was that acronym again? I got you, man. Let's see. So the malicious version of these actions run a tool self-described as the Team PCP Cloud Stealer, which dumps the run worker process memory, harvests SSH, cloud, and Kate secrets, encrypts that data, and exfiltrates it to a remote server. The malware is configured to create a repository named TPCB docs, which we already saw about, in the victim's GitHub account as a fallback method. So what did the malicious GitHub workflows do? So the attacker injected the same 3-stage payload in both Trivia action and setup Trivia. When a downstream workflow executed either action, the payload ran on the victim's machine. This is what we just talked about. It ran collection, going through and collecting a whole bunch of data about it. Malware scraped memory from the run.worker process and read the proc PID mem and searched for certain patterns like value secret or is secret. It also swept for SSH keys, cloud credentials, kube tokens, and a bunch of other stuff. It then encrypted it and then exfiltrated it. So what did the malicious version of the Trivy binary do? So when the malicious binary is executed, it starts both the legitimate Trivy service and the malicious code in parallel. So in our initial analysis, the malicious code exfiltrates secrets with a primary and backup mechanism. If it detects it's on a developer machine, it additionally writes a base64 encoded Python dropper for persistence. Ooh. So that's the one we just heard about that one. The malicious process gathers environmental variables, sweeps the system for credential files stored in the file system, and enumerates network interfaces. It then compresses and encrypts all that data and exfiltrates it. The malware, if that fails, the malware then attempts to use a stolen GitHub token to create a repo and post it to the data there. Ooh. Using any of those stolen GitHub tokens. Damn. For persistence, the malicious code attempts to identify if it's a developer machine by looking for environment variables like GitHub Actions. If that check passes, the malware attempts to create a persistence by writing a Python script. That was the sysmon.py we just read about, and creates a systemd unit for persistence to run the Python script. It initially sleeps for about 5 minutes, then starts polling the ICP information. If a non-YouTube link is found, then the dropper downloads that and then executes the binary. And they come out what actions you can take, how can Wiz help, here's an appendix. Okay, so not as much there. But now this is the one I'm most curious about. This one coming from the guys over at Akaido, and they do really good publishing on their blogs. Let's see, Team PCP deploys canister worm on NPM following Trivy compromise. So this is from the 20th. So we're kind of working backwards here. Hang on, let me see. Because the first article we read was posted, I think, just yesterday, because it says on March 24th. So maybe it was posted today. This one was posted on the 20th. This one was also posted on the 20th. So we're kind of working in reverse here. We've got the broader picture, and now we're getting a little bit more details as we go through this. I've been a SRE for so long, I try to remember to use real words, but it's a soup, man. I get it, dude. Especially like if you're doing reverse engineering for a living, dude, acronym hell just gets dialed up to 11. I mean, just being in IT, it's bad, but specifically in reverse engineering, ugh. All right, hold on. I need to delete the header here because it is killing me. No, where is it? There it is. Ah, there we go. Got all my headspace back. So this is the one from Akaido about this. We detected a large number of packages being compromised on NPM. This is from March 20th. With a new worm that hasn't been observed before. We're calling the specific attack canister worm because it makes use of ICP canisters for its C2 dead drop, which is the first time we've seen a campaign like this. So far, compromised are 28 packages in the email group scope, 16 packages in the OpenGov scope, packages for ESLint, oh, RIP, UUID base 32 package, and the floating UI DOM package. Damn, those, I had to expect those are not lightweight packages. Those are probably heavily downloaded. At least ESLint, UUID, and float. I don't know about ones. I don't know what email group and OpenGov have going on here, but dang. So this appears to be a direct follow-up to the attack on Trivy less than 24 hours ago. Technical breakdown. I gotta be honest, these emojis here are giving me AI vibes. I just gotta be serious. All right, there were 3 architectural stages. Node.js post-install loader to create a persistent Python backdoor to an ICP-hosted dead drop for dynamic payload delivery. Let's see. For self-propagation, deploy.js takes NPM tokens, resolves usernames, enumerates all publishable packages, bumps patched versions, and publishes the payload across the entire scope. And it did 28 packages in under 60 seconds. They were gone in 60 seconds. We already talked about the systemd persistence. Now this is the part I'm most curious about. ICP canister as a C2 dead drop. So a canister on internet computer mainnet returns a URL pointing to a binary payload. Decentralized, censorship resistant, no single takedown point. Now they did say that it was taken down though, so I'm curious how the takedown happened. Well, let's see. Remote payload rotation. So the canister control can swap the URL at any time, publishing new binaries to all infected hosts without touching the implant. For sandbox evasion, there's a 5-minute sleep before the first beacon and roughly 50-minute poll interviews after that. So they're trying to be a little bit slow after they first get in there. The whole post install is wrapped in a try catch. An npm install succeeds normally on all platforms, and the backdoor only activates on Linux with systemd. See, more reasons to run Windows. Not really, just don't do it. Yeah, they got ESLint, Icarus. That's bad. If you don't know what a linter is rules that you go through to basically beautify and visually structure code, like certain numbers of white spacing, lines that are not more than like 100 characters long, all sorts of different rules that you can do in that. So you can go through and you could write your code and then you can run the linter to like basically prettify it. So for the fact that they got into a linter, which is a very common thing, and ESLint is very popular, that's bad. Oh no, what is this? So they also did PostgreSQL masquerading. So all artifacts named to blend into a develop machine like pgmon, pglog, and pgstate. Okay, I didn't realize that's why they were calling them with all the PG prefixes. And the worm fetches each target package's original README before publishing to keep up appearances. Oh, that's funny. So for the malware payload, the file runs automatically as a post-install hook. We've already talked about the troubles of all those with everything with Shai-Hulud. And this happens during your npm install. It decodes the embedded payload, which is a long base64 string in a Python script, and it gets decoded and written into that services.py. It creates a systemd user service for persistence. It starts it immediately and then tries to disguise itself as Postgres. Ooh. npm, not even once, right? So for the Python backdoor, we kind of already talked about this. It was covered in the other blogs. Has a built-in kill switch. If the URL contains url.com, the script skips it, and the canister remains dormant. That's not a kill switch. That's a sleep note. That's basically a NOP. It's a no-op operation. If it's a YouTube link, just don't worry about it. Let's see. It does support payload rotation. We already saw that. So the worm. So the package also includes a deploy.js, which is a self-propagation tool the attacker runs manually to spread the malicious payload across every package for stolen npm tokens to access. The worm is pretty simple. It appears to be entirely vibe coded. I gotta be honest here, Kaido. This article is giving me vibes. Just saying. No attempt at obfuscation was made here. This isn't triggered by npm install. It's a standalone tool the attacker runs with stolen tokens to maximize the blast radius. So it reads npm tokens or npm token from the environment variable. It resolves where those tokens belong to. It enumerates every package that they can push to. It bumps the patched version automatically. So that way it forces a build, forces a new publish. And it preserves the original README. So before publishing, it fetched the target package's existing README from the registry and swaps it in locally. After publishing, it restores its own file, and this keeps npm listing looking normal. Yeah, there's a lot of emojis in this article. I'm just saying. Hold on, let me read through this again. So before publishing, it fetched the target package's existing README from the registry, swaps it in locally. After publishing, it restores its own files, and this keeps npm looking normal. That is kind of odd. Maybe there's a security mechanism here I'm not understanding, and that's why they're doing that. But it is something they did for kind of some kind of evasion. I mean, I get wanting it to look normal up on npm. I don't get why the README package matters, unless Team PCP had put something in there to like basically claim credit. And this kind of fits in here if you think about it, because that was what we were talking about with the hacker claw bot, whatever that was. It didn't make a lot of sense. And hey, guy, thanks for the sub, man. I don't know why the alert didn't fire. It fired earlier. I'm gonna have to go debug it. I'm not sure why some of the events aren't making it. But thank you, dude. Appreciate it. But we talked about this earlier, and now that I know this is with the same guys behind hacker claw bot, whatever it was called, I was like, that one didn't make any sense. It seemed like people were just doing this as some kind of like a flex in there, and now we kind of see, yeah, that was largely the case. I don't know if they're doing. I have to suspect that really the team's doing this for the lulz. I don't see them actually going through and like doing a lot of this malicious stuff. I haven't seen reports of them doing anything malicious with the data they've collected. OpenClaw is actually working. Yeah. Let's see, what else? Canister worm learns to self-propagate. So after about an hour, let me skip this up. After about an hour, the initial email group wave, the attackers published a significant upgrade to ESLint. The worm is no longer a manual tool, it's now self-propagates. So if email group version, in the email group versions, deploy.js was a standalone script the attacker ran manually with stolen tokens. Victims got the backdoor, but the worm didn't spread further on its own. So that changed, and there was a new index.js added, and it adds a find npm tokens function, and that runs during post install and actively harvests the authentication tokens from the victim's machine. So this is the same systemd backdoor as before, but with one critical addition. After installing the persistent service, it scrapes every npm token it can find and spawns the worm with them. Damn. So at this point, the attacker goes from compromising accounts publishing malware to malware compromises more accounts and publishes itself. Every developer or CI pipeline that installs this package and has an npm token accessible becomes an unwitting propagation vector. Well, we already saw that with Shai-Hulud, not surprised we're seeing it again. The packages get infected and their downstream users install those, and any of them that have tokens repeat the cycle. The ICP backdoor payload was swapped out for hello123, a dummy test string that decodes to garbage bytes. And when systemd tries to run it as Python, it crashes immediately, but it has a restart mechanism that sets it to silently restart after 5 seconds. So the attacker shipped the plumbing first to validate the full chain before arming it with a real payload. So if this had shipped with the full ICP backdoor, every compromised developer's packages would have become a new infection vector. Messaging in the source code. It appears that the threat actor is watching the conversation of their attacks. In the latest wave of attacks, they left messages addressing the author of this blog post directly. Hey Charlie, I don't write JS, go easy on me. No. Yeah, literally blast radius. All right, so then they go through indicators of compromise in here. Okay. We closed these up here. And this one was another further one about kicks, but we kind of already know the story about this, so I'm going to skip this one. And this is a more recent one, I think. This one's from yesterday also. Let's see if there's any new information in this one in here. Let's see. Does collection, exfil, lateral movement. So we encountered this first while working on our product, Future Search AI/app, which gave users a team of researchers. So we used LiteLM to let us use models from a wide range of providers, letting us strike the best balance between quality, speed, and cost. One of our engineers noticed the problem and used Claude Code to help root cause it. The damage to us was minimal and no user data was linked. Okay. So yeah, these are the guys that actually first kind of sounded the alarm because I don't know what happened. The attackers, I guess, had it not quite running right at that time, and it fork bombed on his system and exhausted all of his system RAM. Let me refresh this page here. Go away. So this is someone also went through and basically made a hacking LZ over on Twitter. If you don't follow him, go follow him. He's a super smart guy. He went through and created a defanged version of the malware stages. Let's see. This was attacker-controlled URLs have been neutralized to prevent accidental execution or network contact. So that even that's up on GitHub right now. So that's wild. This whole thing's crazy. I'm gonna have to go through and like do a timeline reconstruction of it to see what really happened. All right, let's see here. Oh, there is one more story. Yes, I have to cover this first. Yeah, so there's a company called Delve, and basically they were selling SOC 2 compliance, and it was bad. I returned to CachyOS. Hyperland is not ready yet. Are you adding Hyperland to it? Oh, let's see here. Yeah, so this is Delve, fake compliance as a service. How Delve managed to falsely convince hundreds of customers they were compliant and then lied about it when exposed and called out. The version, yeah, let me see here. Nope, go away. Okay. I'll try to see where the article actually starts here. Okay, so at its core, this article argues that Delve fakes compliance while creating the appearance of compliance without the underlying substance. Delve achieves its claims of being the fastest platform by producing fake evidence, generating auditor conclusions on behalf of certification mills that rubber stamp reports, and skipping major framework requirements while telling clients they have achieved 100% compliance. Their, quote, US-based auditors are Indian certification mills operating through empty US shells and mailbox agents. Auditors breach independence rules by signing off anyway, leaving companies unknowingly exposed to criminal liability under HIPAA and hefty fines under GDPR. Yeah. Here, I keep forgetting to do this. I've been meaning to go drop the articles in chat as they come up. That's my bad. There we go. So if you want to go check it out, this is it.
Warning. Virus infection alert.
The Shy Hat virus. What's up, y'all? Welcome in. I hope you had a wonderful night. You just missed the wild saga. I can't. I give up. I can't talk. You just missed the wild saga of Trivy being compromised and then eventually Light LLM getting compromised as part of that. All seemingly done by a new threat acting group that just kind of kicked up in December called Team PCP. I can't think of any reason they're doing it other than just for the lulz. Oh, I saw your comparison guy, yeah. No, I mean, are you setting up Hyperland right now? Shy ended with an interview of a DevSecOps engineer. Ooh, cool. What's up, guys? Also, I gotta give the obligatory hip-hop hack, hip-hop hack, hip-hop hack. What's up, y'all? So now... Oh, you were trying multiple distros? Ah. So what we're talking about now is a company called Delve that was apparently selling rubber-stamped fake SOC 2 compliances and is absolutely getting roasted over it. Hey, no problem, Shayad. I understand. Thank you for stopping by. And you get a SOC 2, and you get a SOC 2. Everybody gets a SOC 2. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Oh, too funny. Okay. So here, since we just started, I'll recap this for all the raiders that just came in. Oh, wait, hold on. Defus has a question. How do you disclose critical vulnerabilities that should get fixed immediately while being on a red team engagement? So let's say you find some kind of vuln in a web app that gives you access to a file that contains AD creds or a higher priv user. How do you disclose it without risk of losing access to those privs? So we have a pretty clear kind of escalation path for our clients and for the vendor that created the issue, right? And if you're on a red team engagement, it gets a tiny bit more hairy. I have not run into this scenario in a red team engagement. I have run into it before in penetration tests where there's no expectation of stealthiness to it. But for generality speaking, if I come across something that is critical and is currently leaving the client seriously exposed, we stop testing immediately. We get them on the horn. We have like an escalation path already designed with the point of contacts. We get them on, and then we get their engineers on, and then we walk them through the issue so they have all the information immediately available to go instantly remediate it. Now, this typically happens on a penetration test, in which case we'll kind of switch to a little bit of a seeded access mode to it. So let's say in your example, it got me some kind of Active Directory credentials. Okay, that's fine. What we could do is potentially either find a way to seed access as that account or go deploy some kind of a C2 payload acting as that account, something so we could impersonate them and continue the potential chain from there to see where they could go. That's usually what happens probably about 80% of the time. The other 20% of the time, the client says, no, we want you to start from scratch and keep working from there. Most of the time, the clients understand like, hey, we have to stop this attack path that we're doing because it's leaving you vulnerable. We need you to fix the hole. Hey, Fact Warrior, thanks for coming online. Shut up, baby. I know it. So yeah, that's basically what'll happen. At the same time, we'll be going through, and if we find a critical vulnerability in something like something that's not homegrown, it's something that they like say it's like from a vendor system, then we'll go through and we'll begin doing responsible disclosure to the vendor. And so responsible disclosure usually goes down the idea of, hey, we contact them directly. We find like a legit point of contact in their security team. We disclose the vulnerability, and hopefully we can actually talk to them back and forth. Usually responsible disclosure has a 90-day window. Like we give them 90 days to like show good faith that they're actually working on it. And if they don't, we're just going to release it because their inaction is leaving other people vulnerable. So, and usually we'll always try to do our best, not just me, but like I'm speaking like in the security, offensive security team in general, like the whole industry. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. We'll go through and try to like provide compensating controls or workarounds, or hey, you need to disable feature X that will break the exploit chain, whatever. But typically most of the time when you send something to a vendor, I wouldn't say most of the time, it's really a coin flip as to see whether or not they give a damn. And the reason why you then go to full disclosure after that, let's say typically it's 90 days, is because you you're basically putting pressure on them to go fix it. So you're doing two things there. One, you're making it publicly aware because defenders can't defend against what they don't know about. And two, if people don't know it's a problem, they can't go and do any kind of fixes to it. If the vendor won't fix it, or my favorite one is they say, that's a non-issue. I had a buddy who found an exploit in a Windows system, and they tried to tell him it's a non-issue because servers should be running firewalls. Dude, I don't know many companies that run firewalls on their servers, especially not internal servers, like internal Windows servers. I don't know many companies that are running firewalls on there. So he pushed back and they did eventually fix it and paid him a nice, sexy bug bounty. Hey, Lexer, thanks for coming online. Yeah, but if they come back and they say, oh, that's not an issue, I'm like, okay, great, cool. We scheduled the blog post to be released tomorrow. Then one of two things happens. They either say, oh, yeah, we're going to fix it. Don't release that. Or they say, do it. Call my bluff. Okay, cool. We release it. They get flamed for not fixing it. And then they fix it. Or they really, really just don't give a damn and don't fix it. But either way, at least the information's out there so people can start looking for indicators of compromise and find ways to protect themselves against it. All right, so what is this that guy just sent me? Linux tutorial, apps, and MLW4 OS. What is this? Oh, dot files for Hyperland? Ooh. Nice. So in addition to developing MLW4 OS, an advanced feature-rich operating system and dot file configuration system on the dynamic tiling Windows Manager Hyperland, it's easy to install. Ooh, I should go look at that. Because that was one of the things I did like about Omarchy, was I liked the configuration files, all the dot files that you could go through and you could configure everything with. But also, Omarchy's a bit on the unstable side. All right, let's take a look here. So, this will be the last story, and then we're going to wrap it up for tonight. I do have to work in the morning, unfortunately, and I got to go work my ass off after I finish work to go finish getting the four-wheelers prepped for the race this weekend. So I got a very, very busy day tomorrow. Let's see. At its core, this article argues that Delve fakes compliance while creating the appearance of compliance without any underlying substance. Delve achieves its claims of being the fastest platform by producing fake evidence, generating auditor conclusions on behalf of certification mills that rubber stamp reports, and skipping major framework requirements while telling clients they have achieved 100% compliance. Their US-based auditors are Indian certification mills operating through empty US shells and mailbox agents. Auditors breach independence rules by signing off anyway and leaving companies unknowingly exposed to criminal liability under HIPAA or hefty fines under GDPR. Delve hands customers fabricated evidence of board meetings, tests, and processes that never happened. The platform forces companies to choose between adopting fake evidence and performing mostly manual work with little real automation or AI. It produces audit reports that falsely claim independent verification, while Delve itself effectively wears the auditor hat, generating identical reports for all clients, including Lovable, Bland, Cluely, and NASDAQ-traded Duos Edge. Ooh. It hosts trust pages that list security measures that were never implemented. And when clients ask hard questions, Delve dodges. They demand calls where founders charm, promise, name drop these brands, and every Fortune 500 is proof. And when that fails, donuts arrive. So there was actually a big leak from them of spreadsheets and reports, and they all look damn near identical. Let's see. So how did this all start? 2 months ago, an email went out to a few hundred Delve clients informing them that Delve had leaked their audit reports alongside other confidential information through a Google spreadsheet that was publicly accessible. The email also claimed that Delve's audit reports were fraudulent. The company I work for was one of those clients that received the email. Instead of providing clarification and being transparent, Delve's leadership decided to go into deny and deflect mode. When directly asked for clarification, they flat out denied everything. So this was serious as it potentially involved nearly all of Delve's clients and raised questions about the validity of the compliance reports Delve's clients had received. Multiple colleagues in my network received the same email, having the shared experience of being underwhelmed with the Delve experience and having the overall sense of something fishy going on. We decided to pool resources and investigate together, and this article is a result of that collaboration. The reason we felt the way we did was due to how little actual work any of us had to perform to become compliant, combined with a product practically devoid of any real AI. It mostly felt like a SOC 2 template packed with a thin SaaS platform wrapper where you simply adopt and sign all templated documents. No custom tailoring, no AI guidance, no real automation, just pre-populated forms that required you to click save. RIP. That's sketchy as hell. Some of these have gone through compliance before and felt they were a huge mismatch between our past experience and our experience with Delve. So in this article, I'll walk you through the typical experience with Delve, the leak that exposed the operation, how it revealed the fraud we uncovered, and I'll show you, among other things, how each of the following categories, for audit integrity and independence, Delve breached confidence and relies on audit firms that rubber stamp reports, misrepresentation to their customers, product and process deficiencies, and regulatory and compliance risks. All right, so prospect and client advice. So for any prospect considering Delve or any current Delve client, Delve loves claiming that this is all an attempt by their jealous competitors to fraudulently discredit them. And when clients ask concrete questions, they dodge answering the question and instead coax you into getting on a call with them where they charm you and tell you everything that you want to hear. They'll even throw in some donuts. Now, you might be wondering, why the hell does this all matter? It's because this is the administrative side of security, which we don't talk about, granted, a lot, but I honestly love my auditors. And that might sound like a weird thing to say, but the reason I love them is because I hate auditing. And I had to do that for a previous company and go through and audit every freaking policy in a greenfield environment. And it was a nightmare. So I love auditors because they're doing the job that I hate to do. Same way I love the guys that do septic pumping. I don't want to go pump that. So those guys, I'm going to be nice to them. GRC is the 10th circle of hell. It is. So for those people that enjoy GRC, Bobby, I'm going to be extra nice to them. I'll get them some donuts. Hell yes, I will. Because of them, I get to go do fun, hacky stuff. Let's see. So back to the article. One other tactic they frequently employ is to promise issues won't arise again because their old process, product, or auditor is about to be or has already been replaced with something better, or they're about to see the results of it. This is the deflection and delaying tactic. Whether they start being frequently called out on using a particular auditor, they'll switch to another equally dodgy one that hasn't been flagged yet. If they're called out on their deficient product, they point to a superior tier or new feature on the timeline that will solve everything. Expressing unhappiness and a desire to leave will lead Delve to pairing you with an external virtual CISO that will help you do compliance right. You should know that this means you'll have to do all the work manually. If you're concerned about Delve's conduct and practices, ask them questions in writing. Do not allow them to deflect. Do not get on a call with them. In the closing words at the end of this article, you'll find more advice. Yeah, this is bad. So here, let's set the stage. We quickly list all the parties involved and we'll provide some background. So companies affected. Oh, browser use? Oh, bummer. Let's see. Who am I familiar with? On this list, Cluely and browser use are the only two that I'm familiar with. Let's see. So high-profile companies like those listed in the image above and hundreds of others are affected by this. Companies additionally affected are those that partner with Delve's clients, having been misinformed of the risk involved in partnering with those clients. Many of the companies process PHI for millions of U.S. citizens on a daily basis. Some of these even serve national defense interests. RIP. I love, he's like, Delve's auditors, and he's just got the India flag right there. Oh, my mouse is... Stop, mouse. Stop. There we go. So the audit firms listed in the illustration above were identified during our research process. So these are like A Corp, Ecorian Assurance, Prudence Advisors, Gradient Certification, BQC Assessment, DKPC, and Glowcert International. That's a weird name. Glowcert. Got the glow. What we were able to establish, 99% plus of Delve's clients went through either A Corp or Gradient over the past 6 months. So in the wake of Delve's leak in December, Delve is reported to have switched to Glowcert as their primary ISO 27001 auditing firm. Damn. Man, this dude did like a full write. He is pissed. This is a long article. We are here. It goes to here. Let's see. So the founders of Delve, right here. So we have these two folks. I don't know how to say their names. But yeah, here's all the founders. They knowingly participated in Delve's deliberate misconduct regarding audit practices. So Delve is a compliance company, and they help businesses get certified for frameworks like SOC 2, ISO 27001, HIPAA, and GDPR. Companies need these certifications to prove they handle data in a secure way and to unlock deals with larger customers who require them. Compliance has traditionally been a time-consuming process that involves lots of spreadsheets. It used to be manual, expensive, and slow. To give you an idea of what all this is about, we will primarily focus on SOC 2 in this article. And SOC 2 is the most commonly pursued framework in the US. Practically all tech companies that sell to enterprises are expected to be SOC 2 compliant, which basically means they've had to have SOC 2 audit performed in the last year. Now, I have a particular hate of SOC 2, but it's for a personal reason. So when I worked at one of my previous companies, we were in a shared office space we had badge access to our space in the office, which is to be expected. But also there was a different badge you needed to access the external doors to the shared space, right? So there's external doors. They had a different badge than our office suite, which had its own badging system. And I used to get into work very early because I live in South Dallas and the office was in Plano. So I wanted to be able to get up there early in the morning before the traffic became absolute hell on earth. So I left my house real early and I'd get up there well before 7 a.m. And I'd either have to let myself in, or I had to wait for somebody else who had the badge that could go to it. And I asked the company, it's like, hey, by the way, I get in super early. Can I get a badge to the external doors? And they basically said, no, you can't because it would violate our SOC 2 compliance. I was like, dude, can I just clone it with my flipper? And they're like, no, you can't do that because that would violate our SOC 2 compliance. I was like, okay, so let me get this straight. Our SOC 2 compliance is completely dependent on every other tenant in this building maintaining strict security card access to a space that isn't even ours. And at that point, they just said, shut up. So yeah, I have a particular hate of SOC 2. Anyway, sorry for that little aside. Let's get back to the article. So getting a clean SOC 2 report means hiring a CPA firm to review your security controls. If they successfully verify the security you claim to have through all the evidence you provide them, they issue a report saying your security measures are sound. The report becomes proof that you can show customers and investors. SOC 2 and ISO 27001, the European counterpart to SOC 2, are voluntary frameworks. HIPAA and GDPR are not. HIPAA applies to any company handling health records in the US. Penalties are severe, with willful neglect punishable by criminal charges and prison time. GDPR covers any company processing data of EU residents, regardless of where the company is based. Fines run up to 4% of global annual revenue or 20 million euros, whichever is higher. The frameworks carry the force of law because they protect information people cannot easily protect themselves. Medical histories, genetic data, biometric identifiers, location patterns, and any full record of their digital lives. And the companies that help other companies become compliant through automation are called GRC automation platforms. Yeah, Icarus. Yeah, I know. I know that. You know that. They knew that too, but they just got tired of me pointing out the flaws in the logic. Yeah. Yeah, voluntary frameworks carried to extreme measures. Yeah, exactly. It's voluntary in the fact that you don't have to get it, but only if you never want to do business, more or less. Let's see. So who is Delve? Founded in 2023 by Kurin Kushik and Selin Kosalar. Both Forbes 30 under 30 members at MIT dropouts who met as freshmen. They started with a medical AI scribe, pivoted into compliance after hitting HIPAA headaches themselves, and went through Y Combinator in 2024. In July of 2025, they raised $32 million in a Series A fund led by Insight Partners. Before that, they had raised $3.3 million seed round and went through Y Combinator. Delve's pitch is speed through AI. Now, what's funny is, in this case, it really does seem like AI is the old trope of actually Indians. They claim that the company's compliant in days rather than months using what they called agentic AI through an AI native platform. Their marketing promises AI agents that automatically collect evidence, write reports, and monitor compliance gaps without human busywork. The reality, as the article shows, is different. There's no, quote, GDPR certification. There is such a term as GDPR compliant, but not certified. So anyone buying a certification for GDPR is just as guilty of buying into this garbage. That's true. Now, I've never had to deal much with GDPR. So, and come to think of it, I've only ever heard people talking about being GDPR compliant. I've never heard of anybody saying they are GDPR certified. So you raise a very good point there. Auditing is not my bag, baby. And I love that. I love that it's not my bag. Hang on one sec. I'm gonna blow my nose. It's killing me. I need to trim my mustache. The mustache hairs are getting up into my nose hairs. All right, I'm back. All right, so the auditing piece here, let's do that. So SOC 2 audits operate under strict independence requirements designed to preserve trust in the attestation process. So the rules exist precisely to prevent this kind of conduct that the article exposes. While Delve offers compliance services for HIPAA, GDPR, and ISO 27001, this article focused primarily on SOC 2. The rules surrounding those other frameworks would require their own detailed treatment, and the goal here is to establish a clear pattern in Delve's behavior, not to catalog every possible regulatory violation. So the fundamental principle is simple. The parties implementing the controls cannot be the parties attesting to their effectiveness. AICPA's Code of Professional Conduct states that members must accept the obligation to act in a way that will serve the public interest, honor the public trust, and demonstrate a commitment to professionalism. When accountants cannot be expected to make truthful representations, we lose the ability to assess any public or private company's actual performances. Do you have to go outside? Why are you always going to do this when I'm on stream? Hang on, guys. Peaches is like going bananas. She's got to go out like you saw. And I let her out before the stream to try and avoid this. Hang on one sec. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Yeah. I don't know what it is. She used to hate going out at night, and now it seems like as soon as the camera turns on or the lights turn on, she's like, Daddy, I gotta potty right now. And then one night, I was like, no, you don't. You're fine. I wake up and I find a little turdlet in my bedroom where she sleeps. I'm like, all right, fine. I get it. You fired your warning shot. You can go out. So, hey, Matthias, what's up, man? Have we talked about the age verification stuff being embedded in the operating system? We have not, because I think that's going to be a big nothing burger because they fundamentally can't do it. Microsoft knows they can't pull that trigger for something that's only going to be enforceable in California, because what are they going to do? Like, they know they're already starting to lose ground to Linux. And then they're just going to absolutely BTFO themselves if they do it. Linux fundamentally can't do it because it's not a part of the operating system. And any Linux dev who's like, hey, here's how we could potentially do it, deserves to have a sock party. Not a sock party, what was it? A soap party. If you don't know what that is, go watch Full Metal Jacket. Let's see. I own several controls for many of our audits, and so I'm very familiar with audits. We're highly regulated. Luckily no PHI, but we do have PCI and PII. Dude, PCI is the second big headache. I'd say if you had to rank them, it'd be like PHI and PCI, and then PII, like in that order of like what you have to handle stuff. Oh, it's a beatdown. Yeah, bananas and peaches. All right, let's see here. All right, so sorry, back to the article before we got interrupted here. He's focused on SOC 2 for this entire article. For SOC 2 specifically, the ATC Section 205 requires practitioners to maintain independence in both fact and appearance throughout the engagement. The practitioner must not assume management responsibilities or act as an advocate for the subject matter being examined. And so under ATC Section 315, auditors must seek to obtain reasonable assurance that the entity complied with the specified requirement in all material respects, including designing the examination to detect both intentional and unintentional material noncompliance. This requires independent design of test procedures, independent evaluation of evidence, and independent formation of conclusions. So the auditor's report must represent their own professional judgment, not pre-written conclusions provided by the entity being audited for the or its platform vendor. Dell's model inverts the structure by generating auditor conclusions, test procedures, and final reports before any independent review occurs. Dell places itself in the role of both implementer and examiner. This is not a technicality, it's a structural fraud and invalidates the entire attestation. So for a typical Delve experience, this story has many threads, and I struggled with where to start. Do I lead with leaked documents, the auditor's shell game, the fake AI? I would have led with the leaked documents, because that's really where this whole kicked off. Let's see. So I felt like starting with the company's experience, which illustrates many of the points I will make improve later on, was the most effective way to get the picture across. So I collaborated on this article with users from other Delve clients, and we compared notes, and the patterns I described below showed up across all of our accounts. Unless mentioned otherwise, nothing here is cherry-picked. Later sections dissect the specific mechanisms. Well, this is already a long article, and we're late for ending the stream, so we're going to go through as much of it as I can. Sales process. Let's see. So they go all out during the sales process. Though their marketing and sales process, they continually emphasize being the fastest to get companies compliant thanks to their AI. They repeatedly emphasize the impressive companies they work with and how they partner with the best and most respected U.S. audit firms, and their work is accepted by Fortune 500 companies. So they do a demo call. Demo call is short, but a good job showing how automated everything supposedly was. They click through everything pretty quickly. Let's see. So they showed an integration pulling information out of AWS, the ready-to-go default policies you could adopt without modification, the reasonably short list of tasks, the AI questionnaire automation, the beautiful trust page you could publish on their AI Copilot chatbot. What they didn't show, however, was the most integrations were fake and required manual screenshots, that tons of forms need to be manually filled out, and that the trust page wasn't accurate, and they didn't show any of the tasks that had pre-created fake evidence. The best offer for SOC 2 started at $15,000, which we were able to negotiate down to $13,000 on a call. They kept emphasizing how it's a great deal. They were getting so much value that the other companies paid more for. They remained pretty inflexible in pricing until we made clear we were considering a competitor. We must have told at least 4 times that they couldn't go any lower because they would make a loss. There was a lot of pressure and posturing, but the price quickly dropped to just $6,000 when they realized we were serious about going elsewhere. And they would throw in ISO 27001 and a 200-hour penetration test as well. Oh no. Oh no. I would have loved to have known what happened during that event. I'm too old to install Ubuntu. I know, right? If I use Ubuntu, it's the decapitated server form in a Docker container, basically. Let's see. So they pushed us to sign within 24 hours or lose that deal, and we decided to jump and move forward and get it over with. In hindsight, there were many red flags. So yeah, if they jump and they're like, hey, if they've dropped the price from $15,000 to $6,000, you're talking a more than 50% cut, and you have to sign within 24 hours. Dude, that is classic high pressure sales. And anybody who's selling a product worth a damn doesn't do high pressure sales. How the heck do you even go through procurement in 24 hours? Our legal team would rightfully laugh. Yeah, exactly. I don't know any legal team that would be like, hey, we need at least 24 hours to redline this shit. What are you going to do? Yeah. I have not seen this many red flags outside of China. Let's see. So what about post sales? Trust pages before the work. So once you're invited to the Delve platform and log in for the first time, you'll be greeted with an interface that reveals there are 4 categories of activities: policies, team, tech, and company. Before you even get started doing any rework, you can go into the trust tab and activate and publish a trust page for your company. You'd think it would probably be a very minimal trust page with everything failing at first, since you haven't done any work, right? Nope. You immediately get a fully populated trust page that would have you believe you're running the most secure company on earth. Delve's trust page presented our company as fully secure before we had completed any compliance work, enabling us to close deals based on misrepresented security claims. Oh no. Noteworthy is that the list hadn't changed after we finished compliance in any way. but it still wasn't truthful. My expectation was that the list reflected the security you'd get at the end of Delve's process, but it took getting there to learn that that wasn't true either. It says we did vulnerability scanning and pen testing when we only ever did the scan. It says we did data recovery simulations, which we never did. It says we remediated vulnerabilities, which we never did. It is literally a made-up list of security measures, of which more than half are not implemented or even supported or addressed by Delve's process and platform. In short, the product is built to help companies fake security rather than communicate their real security. Oh, Lord. That's bad. Where are we on the slider here? I'm trying to see. Dude, you can't even see it. The slider, it's right there. You can kind of see where my mouse is because it's behind the bit buffer. We're so far from the end of this. We're definitely not covering all of this. Let me see if there's any more highlights here. Tech, you add a bunch of BS in. All right, let's jump to the AI native section. So one thing that stands out as you go through Delve's tasks is there isn't any AI to speed up any of the work. The only thing available is an AI copilot that can provide generic advice and doesn't seem to have much context beyond what form you're in. More than half the time, the AI copilot would tell me the evidence in the platform was not sufficient and refer to links to other GRC platforms. As opposed to what it promised during the sales process, the tasks are not customized to your company. You're basically dumping into an interface and told by the customer success person that you can ask questions on Slack if you get stuck. Then what's the AI for? The reality is that there's very few times you'll ever need help from Delve's team, primarily because everything on their platform is pre-populated. You won't have to ask how to do a risk assessment because you get the same pre-generated risk that every other Delve customer gets. You won't have to complain about having to do board meetings after you were explicitly promised during the sales call that this is something all other providers but Delve ask for, because you get a pre-created fake board meeting notes that you can adopt as is. Bro. Can't stand security theater. Further can't wait for the generational shift to finally happen in tech. Oh, dude, this is wild. Seriously, becoming compliant with Delve is nothing more than clicking through a bunch of pre-populated forms and accepting everything, unless you want to do compliance the proper way, in which case Dropbox is as good a tool as Delve, since then you need to manually collect and write everything yourself. So he's got another section called typical tasks and fake evidence. Oh no. One of our obvious concerns was this approach would never pass an audit, but we were explicitly told Delve never failed a single audit in the past and that auditors have never flagged a single issue in their process. They tried to put our minds at ease by telling us about the amazing Delve clients that sold to Fortune 500 companies using the exact same process. Delve continuously reminding us that they serve clients like Lovable, Bland, Whisperflow, and many others ended up wearing us down, so we took their word for it and moved on. Integrations that don't integrate to anything. When the time comes to actually hook up your stack to Delve so that Delve can do the continuous monitoring thing, you'll find that the vast majority of the integrations don't integrate with anything at all. They're just containers for screenshots you'll have to go out and manually collect. Maybe this is like a BYO AI. You're supposed to bring your own AI to go collect all the evidence. Imagine my surprise when I learned that the AI native compliance wouldn't mean I'd have to spend hours manually collecting screenshots and filling out forms. I truly feel like a mindless agent in what Delve calls the agentic experience. Hey, Lethal, what's up, man? Hack the Earth. It's the planet. The planet. Hack the planet. Who knows? Real hacking is done. Social engineering, dude. You're not joking, man. Dude, this is wild though. Delve, quote, fixes everything though. So forgot to onboard existing employees before the observation period started? No problem. That's what happened to us, and Delve told us not to worry, it wouldn't jeopardize our audit. Later, I saw how they handled it. Delve marked all checks as passing for employees who never did anything. Training complete. Delve's devices secure. Background checks performed. Every employee had identical fake boilerplate evidence. Oh no. And finally, passing SOC 2 with flying colors. At the end of the observation period, despite knowing you didn't do any real work and adopted fake evidence left and right, you get this wonderful message informing you passed your SOC 2 audit with flying colors and that you just received an incredibly high quality report. Dude, this is wild. Dude, yeah, they're not even like misrepresenting the evidence. They're just flat out fabricating it. Yeah, it's BYOC, bring your own compliance. God, man, this is crazy. So after you get your SOC 2 report, you're probably thinking it'll unlock a lot of doors and enterprise sales will get a lot easier. That is sort of the case. Our experience is that quite a few enterprises simply don't care or won't even look at your report or trust page. You can just tick some internal box and move on. Other companies, on the other hand, are a lot stricter and won't take your SOC 2 report as proof of sufficient security at face value. Those companies will want you to prove and defend what you're claiming. So what do you do when those pesky enterprises send a questionnaire? You drop it into Dell's questionnaire AI. Easy enough. For us, it ended up answering around 70% of all questions, and we filled out the remaining 30% manually. Delve wasn't as much use for the remaining 30%, and we didn't get the impression that they, the Delve team, really understood the domain, so we ended up working with Claude to get the remaining parts done. Oh no. Your AI sucks. We're using Anthropic. The trouble starts when you look at Delve's answers provided. The answers that Dell's AI provided. Based on what your policy claimed, the questionnaire AI answers questions stating you have MDM, had a 200-hour pen test, and do regular backup restoration simulations. Tens of questions are answered like that. Great, you just lied to your vendor, but at least you have a good shot at landing the deal. So what do? We kept our mouths shut. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. But what do you do when the enterprise you're selling to asks you to show the pen test report, which you never did despite paying for it? Because Dell told you a pentesttools.com vulnerability scan sufficed. When they ask for your most recent risk assessment, do you just screenshot Dell's prefabricated assessment and pray nobody will pay attention? It was at this point that realization sank in. We knew we messed up. We were unable to answer most questions honestly without jeopardizing the deals we were trying to land, and we scrambled to get things done the proper way outside of Delve in an effort to pretend to know what we were doing, but it ended up simply being too much work to get done quickly enough to save things. We lost a number of deals because we were stuck in security review and lost momentum. And a few we were able to salvage, but all in all, it was a very frustrating process. Delve wasn't much help through the entire ordeal. Customer support kept promising to get back to us, but ended up giving us nonsense solutions that felt GPT generated, or at times just ghosted us. So after announcing we were considering to leave Delve, one of the founders got on a call with us who kept reiterating how it was unique that what we were going through. We were told that compliance like Lovable and Blang coast through all security reviews with their Delve reports, that practically all Fortune 500 companies accept the reports blindly. They promised that we were about to ship new features and products that would solve our problems. They showed us a demo of a no-code automation tool called Pathways that would get rid of the manual work we complained about, which they had already shown during the demo many months before. Dude. Yeah. Trust is a very, very fragile thing, Sick, right? If you think about it, the best analogy I ever heard for trust is it's kind of like a house of cards, right? It is very difficult to build, and it is very impressive whenever you build it up large, but it just takes one little shake to really destroy it. Dell's AI is auditing imitation, auditing Imagineering, right? Oh, man. So they kept us talking as if they had built it themselves. So I verified by asking explicitly if they did. They told us they had built from the ground up. What was peculiar, since I knew the tool to be SimStudio, which I recognized because I used it in the past, and below you can see Dell's version on the left and a regular SimStudio deployment on the right. It's the same picture. It's the same picture. All right, let's skip down a little bit. The leak and to Delve's response. So in late December, an email went out to hundreds of Delve's clients that informed them that Delve had leaked a spreadsheet with confidential client reports. And I saw the leak when this happened, and yeah, it was a lot that happened in here. Every entry had a Google Docs link that pointed to the audit report of the client. The reports are supposed to be confidential because they contain sensitive information. The email also claimed that the spreadsheet revealed that Delve, rather than the auditors, was generating these reports in this email. So it didn't say who it was from. It just says who it's to. But TLDR, your company's SOC 2 report is part of a fraudulent audit process involving Dell, AC Corp, and Gradient. Delve used an automated report generator to produce identical reports across all companies. These reports were rubber stamped by AC Corp and Gradient with zero validation and do not reflect your company's actual security practices. The fraud is now public and your company is implicated. It sounds like somebody got a hold of Delve's data and then just blasted it out to everybody. All reports contained in the spreadsheet that have been circulated are backed up and available through the link below. So he's got a mega link here. A few days later, Delve CEO sent an email to affected clients refuting the allegations from the internal email. Yesterday, an AI-generated email was sent to Delve customers with falsified claims and an alert about a publicly accessible internal audit automation document. While this email is not from a credible source, in the spirit of transparency, we want to proactively address the situation. Let's see, what does he say? I personally assure you that you are in compliance and there is no impact to the validity of your audit. Bullshit! After investigating the situation, we determined that human error resulted in the document being made publicly available. Really? You're not going to blame the AI? Oh, we didn't do it. The AI did it. We also determined that no external party gained access to the Delve platform, integrations, or any databases where sensitive information resides. Maybe because you don't have any sensitive information. You make it all up. Let's see. And then he goes on to other CEO BS. So this was an email from Karun Kaushik, which was CEO and co-founder of Delve. The claim that no external party gained access to any database where sensitive data resides is an outright lie. The spreadsheet itself constitutes that and was used as a database of sensitive client information, and the leaked reports contained private data signatures and architectural diagrams. Delve revoked access to the main spreadsheet, and individual reports were very shortly after the exposing email went out. So they could be assumed to have thought that nobody had accessed or downloaded those reports before Delve made them private. Yeah, good luck with that. Oh, man. Draft reports also contained confidential architecture diagrams. As reported on Reddit, another email went out to a much larger audience. So he sends out another one talking about their trust process and what happened. No external party accessed the Delve platform, its integrations, any sensitive databases. Well, it kind of... I mean, technically, it was a spreadsheet. It's not technically a database. So again, Karen refutes the claims by stating an AI-generated email. There you go. Now you finally got it. Oh, it wasn't a human. No, the AI did this. Don't blame us. Went out with falsified claims. No, it would be really hilarious if they actually did have some kind of internal AI agent and it realized what was happening, and then just went like full whistleblower mode. That would be hilarious. No, P44 spreadsheets are not databases. Spreadsheets are spreadsheets. What's your hourly rate for a 200-hour penetration test? I don't know at my current company, but at my last company where I did a lot of the quoting and like actual scoping, it was a lot. Let me see something here. I'm going to snooze the ads because we got to wrap up. I just realized we're like a half hour over the end of stream. Let me see. Yeah, a 200-hour penetration test would be roughly half of my yearly salary. Yeah, it was a chunk. I'd be highly leery of those zipped docs on Mega. Oh yeah, no, I'm not downloading that stuff. Yeah, follow the money. It's always, dude, always. That will get you to the source of a lot of things like 99% of the times. Let's see. The email this second email also established that Delve's head of security and compliance, Charles Nwatu, was the person who remediated the situation and therefore knows the true contents and extents of the breach. This means he knows that Kerr and Krishik's statements about the breach are false. So what did the leak and the research reveal? So this section contains a summary of what the leak and subsequent research have uncovered about Dell's contracts and public information. So claim number 1, U.S. audit firms and U.S.-based CPAs. The work is routed to a network of cheap firms in India. See, again, AI really just means actually Indians. Auditors are independent. Reality is auditors approve reports drafted by Delve without independently performing the documented processes or verifying underlying evidences. Reports written by an auditor, not Delve. Audit reports including test procedures and final conclusions are generated by Delve before any auditor involvement. Auditors only approve what Delve produced. Every report is custom. This is claim number 4. Draft reports contain templated language and pre-written conclusions before company details are even inserted. And finally, reports accurately reflect the implemented controls. Section 3 of Delve's reports contains standardized control descriptions that many clients have never implemented. Dude. And it goes on. That was just the first section. That was Delve's audit integrity. Then he goes on to refute all the claims about their AI and automation claims. And then he goes into their the compliance process and monitoring and their trust relationships. Oh, God. Here, this is an important breakdown, though. In the table below, you can see the difference between compliance steps are approached between a normal required process and the Delve process. Writing the system description, that usually should be the company and Delve. Who actually does it? Just Delve. So basically, for the first 3, write system descriptions, create a list of the controls, and write the management assertions. It should be a collaboration between the company and Delve. And who really does it? Just Delve fabricates it all. And then for the next set, controls are tested and the test conclusions are written. Independent auditor's report is written and a final report is stamped. That should all be done by a CPA auditing firm. And instead, everything except for the final report being stamped was Delve. So it's like Delve all the way down until the final stamp is done. And the audit firms are questionable. Dude, this is a long article. We are currently only 30% of the way through this. So this guy, this was written with a vendetta. Yeah, here, I'm going to drop a link to it so you guys can go check it out. Yeah, and this is only part 1, Bobby. You're right. There's a link to it. I just dropped it in chat for everybody. This is freaking wild. And he goes over analysis of the leaked reports. The TLDR there is that they all look almost identical to each other. Dude, hold on. Let me snooze the ads again real quick. I'm just glancing at the rest of the article to see what else he's got in here. What is this section? So he's talking about these are 2 audit reports that are almost exactly identical. Only thing that's changed is the company name. The rest of the wording is identical to it. Look at that. Browser, in this case, it was browser use includely, and then everything else is the exact same, word for word. Bro. So in this one, it looks like the exact same thing. The description is intended to provide information. I mean, now it's granted, it is one thing to use templates. Whoever says they're not using templates is an idiot and a liar. But at the same time, to go through and like never clean this up. And this is not like, hey, we used a template to say like, we're going to introduce the company and what they do. No, this is information about their monitoring, their capacity management, their patch management, their vulnerability scanning and security audits, their virus scan and endpoint security. This is not boilerplate stuff unless it's in an appendix where you're just defining the technology. Let me read this real quick. Hang on. Ironically, it's bigger this way. That's what she said. An endpoint security solution is installed with the feature of scanning the device automatically, and log reports are reviewed by the IT team and management. Antivirus software has been installed on all desktops and laptops within scope. Updates to the virus definition files are managed and downloaded by the software itself on a daily basis from the vendor website at specific intervals. So this isn't like, hey, we're just going to define what is a virus scan or endpoint security. This is attesting to like what they actually have in the freaking environment. And it's completely made up. Oh, Ty, you might have missed it. We talked about that at the beginning, the middle hour of the stream. Yeah, that was all stemming from the Trivia hack. Yeah, it's wild. It's just slop. AI slop all the way down. Dude, he went hard on this too. He's like, hey, look, the exact number of files in these reports are the same. The sign that the reports are generated from a Delve-owned template, always the same test procedures and conclusions. Bro, he goes hard on this. Let me... Oh, here we go. Here's the table of contents. Let me see if there's anything else in here real quick I want to cover before we got to deuce out. Dude, this is a shit ton of evidence in here. Holy cow. Signs of who was involved. Let me see this real quick. True independent audits would produce gradual random variations across reports. Instead, Delve's documents show synchronized updates applied en masse as if generated from a single source file that changed periodically. One of the entries has sskolakard@gmail.com as the company contact email. One of Delve's founders is Celine Kolakar, as if sskolakar.com at gmail.com turns out to be her personal email address. This makes it likely she was personally involved in setting up and testing report generation tools. To verify this is actually her personal email, I did a Google search, which led me to find a chapter development report from June of 2019, where Celine Kolakar is listed as the chapter president with that exact same email address. Dude, he went OSINT on her. I mean, very light OSINT, but still, he's like, hey, how can we validate this? Yeah, this is yours as of at least 2019. Your company didn't start until 2023. Dude. You done messed up, Aaron? What else do we have in here? Oh my god, it just keeps going. That too is what she said. Dude, that's wild. Okay. I gotta wrap it up there, guys, because it is already 40 minutes past the time of the stream, which means my probability of aggroing sock is now up to 82%, because it goes up 2% per minute past 11 o'clock Central Time. So let's see if InfoSec Streams is working again. Hey, at least it's working now. We're showing up on here, but unfortunately no one else is. So as much as I hate to do a quick dash and run, let's see if we can find anybody to go right over to real quick. Let's see. Who's on? Console Repairs is on. Yeah. Let's see. You know what? Moo Hoodies is on. Talking about space. That's always a good topic to it. So we'll go right over to Moo Hoodies. Oh, she's actually just getting ready to start. Okay, perfect. Well, good. We'll kick her off right. Guys, do me a favor. When you get over to Moo Hoodies stream, drop a whole bunch of hacked up plants and happy hackers in there. Show her some support. I love the space streams. Unfortunately, they always happen really late at night. I know, which is ironic considering what time we're usually streaming, but you know what? It is what it is. Everyone, y'all take awesome care. The week is not over yet. We are still going strong on the week. Crushing It mode is in full effect. Remember, Friday is read-only Crushing It mode. So you can go into full active, full contact, in the face, Monday Crushing It mode. And also remember, Saturday, no stream. If I can, I'll try to do an IRL live stream from the race. I don't know how it's going to work. Depends on what the cell service is. But I will try to do that. If nothing else, maybe Saturday night we'll do a hangout by the fire on there. I'll see what I can do. Everyone, y'all have a fantastic rest of your week. Thanks for coming to hang out and reading about the wild stories we had this week. We had some good ones. And I want y'all to remember one very important thing, and that is, I love you. Peace.